You tell us that we're the future, that we can be anything we choose. But what if we don't have that choice? Some of us have never had a choice. In 2020, more of us were silenced, hurt, and left behind. Some of us went hungry or lost the roof over our heads. We watched our parents worry about their jobs and our health. We missed school and our friends, and some of us couldn't even learn online. But we deserve shelter. We deserve care. We deserve to be heard. We want to feel safe, to be able to play, not just to survive, but to live. Europe has the power to change our lives, and we want to be part of that change. To feel like we are going to shape the world. You tell us that we're the future, but we're here, now. You say you believe in us. Can we believe in you?
Welcome, dear high-level guests, and welcome, dear participants, to today's conference about the European Child Guarantee. My name is Arya, and I am a junior ambassador of UNICEF Slovenia. I will be moderating this introductory part of events together with my colleague Bilal, who cooperates on different projects with the Slovenian Association of Friends of Youth. I hope that you have all carefully watched the opening video because it shows us how the pandemic disproportionately impacted those children who are already disadvantaged. It is the Eurochild's #CanWeBelieveInYou campaign video. I'd also like to tell you that children participated through the whole process of filming, from drafting the text to the final product. The Slovenian presidency wishes to contribute to the successful implementation of the European Child Guarantee. It is said in the recommendation that we want to achieve a goal of 5 million less children living in poverty in the European Union by 2030. Let us remind ourselves about some facts. The recommendation on establishing the European Child Guarantee was adopted on June 14, 2021. It says that countries have to guarantee us effective access to early education and preschool care, access to education and health, at least one healthy meal per day, healthy nutrition, and decent housing. When governments will make measures, they will have to take into account the needs of homeless children, children with migrant backgrounds and from ethnic minorities, children with disabilities and mental health issues, children in alternative care, and children in precarious family situations. Member states of the EU have the important task to prepare national action plans by March 15, 2022. We have a comprehensive agenda for today, so let's start with the opening speaker. Janez Cigler-Kralj is the Minister of Labour, Family, Social Affairs and Equal Opportunities of the Republic of Slovenia. He is also our host for today. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Arya Ela, for giving me the floor. I'm really happy that you and Bilal are here with us today. Honorable guests, dear Vice President Šuica, dear Commissioner Schmidt, dear Nicholas, dear Ana, colleague Portuguese Minister, and dear Excellency Marie-Louise Colero Preca, President of the Eurochild. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. It is my great pleasure to welcome you warmly in the virtual room today. The topic of this conference, a child's well-being, is very close to my heart. As one says, We have not inherited the land from our parents. We are borrowing it from our children. Therefore, it is our common responsibility to take care of the land and of the society, to return them to our children in such a condition that our children will be able to give them back to their children. This is actually the main idea of the sustainable development. We have to do our best to prevent and reduce any unsustainable trends in our societies. Inequalities, poverty, and social exclusion by no means contribute to a socially sustainable development and thus have to be eradicated in as much as possible. I personally believe that child poverty is not acceptable in the 21st century. It's not acceptable from the child's rights perspective, and it is not acceptable from the societal and economic perspective. A sustainable development of our societies is only possible if we take care of all generations, in particular of children. We must step up our efforts for guaranteeing equal opportunities for every child to become an active citizen and fully participate in the society. By reducing inequalities in early childhood, we reduce inequalities later in one's life. The European Child Guarantee is an important mechanism which could guide member states in their efforts to reduce poverty and social exclusion of children in need by providing them an effective access to the key services. The rapid and unanimous adoption of the Council recommendation establishing a European Child Guarantee clearly showed a strong commitment by the EU member states to combat poverty and social exclusion of children. There is also a strong commitment on the side of the European Commission, European Parliament, and non-governmental organizations, which make a very strong alliance in acting together towards achieving the EU 2030 target, reducing the number of people at risk of poverty or social exclusion by at least 15 million, at least 5 million of which children. Now it is up to member states to prepare the national action plans in close cooperation with civil society organizations and to start implementing them in order to achieve or even exceed the 2030 EU target. The presidency is fully committed to making the European Child Guarantee a reality for every child. By organizing today's conference, the presidency wants to encourage member states to prepare ambitious national action plans on time, to learn from each other and to use all of the information and funds available for lifting children in need out of poverty and social exclusion as soon as possible. As we know, the cycle of intergenerational transfer of poverty and deprivation can most effectively be broken at an early age. Investing in the human capital from birth onwards, it is an important element of tackling the demographic challenges, which are also high on the presidency's political agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe a very rich program and fruitful discussions await us. In the opening session, the Vice President Šuica, Commissioner Schmidt, Her Excellency Kolero Preka, and my colleague Anna will share their thoughts on the topic. The main part of the conference consists of the two working sessions, focusing first on the effective implementation of the Council recommendation on the European Child Guarantee, and secondly, on the exchange of best practices on the social inclusion of children in need. I believe the distinguished speakers will share their knowledge and experience in a way that everybody in this virtual room will find something useful for their daily work. After the working sessions, everyone will have a chance to comment or to pose questions on the topic to the speakers or other participants. I really think that we can expect a fruitful discussion. In the closing session, our honorable guests will share their views on the way forward to eradicate child poverty and social exclusion in the EU. It will also be interesting to hear the plans for the incoming presidency and the European Commission on the implementation of the European Child Guarantee. Ladies and gentlemen, let's open our minds and learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Ziegler-Kral, for your inspiring opening speech in which you emphasized the efforts of the Slovenian presidency and the importance of the European Child Guarantee for European children and for the sustainable development of our societies. I agree with you that governments should take care of those children who grew up in poverty and that we have to break the cycle of poverty. Indeed, as you pointed out, we have a tight schedule and a lot of work ahead of us. We have some trouble connecting to Mrs. Dubravka Šuica, so we would like to give the word to Mr. Schmidt.
We know that the European Commission wants to build a strong social Europe. The European Child Guarantee is also important from the perspective of social rights. This year in March, the European Commission presented the Action Plan 2030 for the European Pillar of Social Rights. So I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Nicolas Schmid, the European Commissioner for Jobs and Social Rights, to tell us about other measures to achieve a strong social Europe. How will the countries help the parents and by extension their children? How are the Child Guarantee and the Action Plan 2030 for the European Pillar of Social Rights interconnected?
Good morning, everybody. Dear Yanis, dear Dubravka, dear Anna, dear all, and especially also dear national coordinators for the European Child Guarantee. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking the Slovenian presidency for organizing this conference on such an important topic. Despite all the efforts, still far too many children are at risk of poverty and social exclusion. The impact of the COVID-19 has been particularly acute for those coming from socioeconomically disadvantaged families. And with rising inequalities and the transformation of our economy, we cannot afford to have second-class generations. This is why we all need to join the efforts to reduce by 2030 the number of children at risk of poverty or social exclusion by at least 5 million. The European Child Guarantee comes very timely. Today's discussion will contribute to explain why it is necessary, how it can break the cycle of disadvantage, and how many children it is going to help. Let me just focus on the most important aspects. The European Child Guarantee aims to tackle a specific dimension of child poverty and social exclusion: unequal access to services that are fundamental for the well-being of children: childcare, education, school activities, school meals and healthy nutrition, healthcare, and housing. Of course, the Child Guarantee is not the only antidote to the eradication of child poverty. Children are dependent on their families, carers, and on wider society for their development. This is why the European Pillar of Social Rights Action Plan includes a number of initiatives aiming at improving the economic situation of low-income households. We coupled the Child Guarantee with future EU funding. All member states should dedicate adequate resources under the European Social Fund Plus to fight child poverty and social exclusion, and to implement the European Child Guarantee. Both European and national resources should be activated. I am pleased to note that according to preliminary available information on dedicated ESF Plus allocations to address child poverty, countries that are concerned by the 5% thematic allocation are likely to go beyond this required threshold. I also encourage you to make full use of all available EU support: the European Regional Development Fund, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, and the Technical Support Instruments. However, EU funding is not enough. Member states should first of all allocate necessary national resources to address child poverty. In doing so, you will ensure a better future for the next generation and help achieve a fast and inclusive recovery. We need to implement the Child Guarantee fast. It is important that the Child Guarantee coordinators have a strong political mandate and the necessary operational support given the multidimensional features of the European Child Guarantee. I'm glad to see that many have already taken action, and I thank you for that. However, there are still gaps in the system, hampering equal opportunities for the most vulnerable. And this brings me to the next point, the National Action Plan. I urge you to prepare ambitious and forward-looking plans. This is not business as usual. The key will be the identification of children in need in each member state and offering a tailor-made and targeted policy response with a strong involvement of the local authorities and stakeholders, including those from the social economy. The Commission, together with UNICEF, offer you any support you may need in this regard. The Commission will also work with member states within the Social Protection Committee to develop a common monitoring framework to assess the progress in implementing of the Child Guarantee. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, as we prepare digital and greener transition of our economy, and that we address demographic challenges, we should give fair changes to the next generation. I firmly believe that the European Child Guarantee, by creating equal opportunities for all children, will be a milestone in this direction. You know, we have a unique opportunity. Children dream, and a lot of children, millions of children, they dream with a lot of anxiety for the future, for their future. We have to give them confidence. We have to give them better opportunities. And that's what the Child Guarantee is all about. I thank you for your attention and wish you a fruitful discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Schmidt, for telling us more about the importance of social rights. Children cannot be happy if we worry about our families. That is why solving poverty and social exclusion are not only important for children, but also for our parents and other members of our families. I believe that it is important that governments keep that in mind when they'll be preparing their action plans. I will now give the floor to Ana Mendes Godinho, Minister of Labour, Solidarity and Social Affairs of the Portuguese Republic. It was during the Portuguese presidency that all the member states reached an agreement about child guarantee in record time, and the support was unanimous. Congratulations! I would like to ask you to share what Portugal has been doing in other areas to improve the lives of children at risk of poverty and social exclusion.
Hello, can you hear us? We can't hear you. Hello?
Mrs. Mendes Godinho.
Yes, now I am.
Great.
Good morning, good morning. You had muted me, so I was trying to unmute myself.
Oh.
Good morning to all of you.
Did you hear me?
Yes, yes. Can I?
Okay.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear you
Perfect.
now.
So
Continue.
good morning, Bilal. Good morning, Arja. Good morning, Yanesh. Good morning to all the coordinators. Dear Nicholas, it's great to be with you, even if digitally, but it's always great to share with you these so special moments for all of us. Well, first of all, I have to thank Yanis for organizing this meeting and maintaining alive our child guarantee, which was such a important conquer for all of us, for each of us, but mainly for Europe and for children in Europe. Well, as Bilal said, I think we all agreed in Porto Social Summit, and we all committed to concrete results to combat and fight poverty in children. And during our presidency, we got this unanimous approval of the European Child Guarantee, which was a result of the work of everyone, but the commitment of everyone, from the Council, from the member states, from the Parliament, and this was the first important victory for children in Europe. I think and I believe that we face a unique moment at a time, a unique moment when we learned so many difficult and challenging lessons during the pandemic, but that gives us legitimacy to act and to act fast. I think this is the main responsibility we all have in our shoulders. Well, this European Child Guarantee, it's a very first important step, but it needs action, and it needs that our member states have a delivery and concrete results in terms of concrete measures. In Portugal, we decided to accelerate everything we could. We built a national strategy to fight poverty, where we identified children in the first place as our main driver to guarantee that if we give an opportunity to children, we are giving an opportunity to all society. It's as Bilal said in the beginning, it's the way we have to fight the cycles of poverty. Well, in terms of concrete actions that we took, we decided to create a national child guarantee, which is a financial amount to guarantee that each child in risk of poverty has at least 1,200 euros per year, to guarantee that they have a minimum to have the minimum means to break this cycle of poverty. At the same time, we decided to create a program to have free kindergarten for all the children, so that they are part of the system and that they are not excluded just because they have no opportunity to access. Of course, we have our national coordinator who is participating, Sonia. Hello, Sonia, and all the coordinators that is working very hard to guarantee that we have a very ambitious and concrete national plan with very focused results and outputs, because we are all fed of words. We want concrete actions that can change real life in real children. At the same time, we have a national commission with the housing system, health system, education system, social insurance system, so that everyone is talking at the same platform to guarantee that we are articulating and putting children in our first top of mind. We also decided to mobilize RRF funds to increase the number of kindergarten facilities, so that every children has the possibility to guarantee that they enter the education system from earlier they can, because that can make the change in guaranteeing that they are part and they are included. We are also working on a plan to guarantee that any children who is in an institution can have a family if they have conditions for that, to guarantee that every children has a family, as this is a universal rights. Well, just to sum up, I would like to state that we must take action, and we must not lose the potential of every children. Europe, the most valuable instrument and asset that Europe has are people. But people need to guarantee that children are part of this process, and they are the best asset we all have as Europeans. No child is an island. This meaning, if one child fails, it is our responsibility of each one of us. It is our responsibility. It means that we as society failed. The responsibility is in our hands. Dear coordinators, it is on your shoulders right now when you are doing the concrete plans. The responsibility is mentioned, is on our hands, and the ambition in each plan is the seed for the concrete actions that we need for our common future. Sowing the seeds of the national action plans of the child guarantee is sowing the seeds of love, is sowing the seeds of Europe. Great work, coordinators. We depend on you.
Thank you for your speech, Minister Mendes Godinho. It was very interesting, and it shows us how important it is to have holistic strategies to help children and that we shouldn't focus on only one or two areas. Last but definitely not least, I would like to introduce our last opening speaker, Her Excellency Marie-Louise Colero Preca, who is the President of Eurochild and Ambassador of the International Girl to Leader campaign by the Women Political Movement Leaders Global Forum. She is acclaimed internationally as an eminent speaker covering poverty and social inclusion, inequalities, peace building, the empowerment of women, gender, violence, migration, and children's rights. Your Excellency, could you tell us why the Child Guarantee is so important and how it would help children in the European Union?
Good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for this very important question and for inviting me to this timely event. To understand the crucial role that the Child Guarantee will play in the next years, we must reflect on the critical junction that the European Union is currently in. There are two opposing factors in relation to children and their rights. On one hand, we are witnessing the climate emergency. We are experiencing the widening of social inequalities and vulnerabilities, and we are living through the fragmentation of our democracies. However, not everything is doom and gloom. As on the other hand, we are experiencing an extraordinary political momentum for the protection of children's human rights in Europe. The commitment to a child guarantee represents a monumental step forward in the fight against child poverty and social exclusion. The new agreement on the European Social Fund Plus compels all member states to dedicate adequate resources to tackle this issue. The new agreement on the moreover, the European Commission has published its first ever strategy on the rights of the child and has set a target to lift 5 million children out of poverty by 2030, as we already heard. The Child Guarantee is setting a roadmap and clear framework to address child poverty. The Child Guarantee sets early childhood education and care as one of its priority areas. This is an area which is widely researched, yet, despite the evidence that research provides, it receives relatively little attention in politics and public policies. The first year's first priority campaign, launched in 2020 by Eurochild and the International Step-by-Step Association in partnership with the European Public Health Alliance and the Roma Education Fund, advocates for the prioritization of early childhood development in public policies. This campaign emphasizes the need that every child in Europe aged 0 to 6 years receives a first start in life. Evidence in this area states clearly that many of the major public health concerns experienced in adult life are linked to experiences during the first 1,000 days of life. The first 1,000 days of life are crucial, quoting Dr. Charmaine Bonello, a Maltese expert in early years. She said, the first years are crucial for forming and building the architecture of the brain. In 2018 in Europe, we had a turnout of 95% of children aged between 4 and the compulsory starting age of primary education who were in early childhood education. This statistic prompts some very basic questions which need a response and necessary action. What about the other 5% who are out of school? What are the reasons behind these 5% of children for not accessing their early childhood education? Who are the children that fall within this 5%? Why have these children not accessed early childhood education? What is hindering these children from attending school? What is the situation now, especially during and after the lockdowns? The first years are fundamental for life. National governments need and must invest in early childhood education and care. National governments need to focus their policies and energies to ensure a first start for every child. It is common knowledge that early childhood experiences shape a child's adult life. Investing, therefore, holistically in early years is one of the most effective tools to stop the escalation of poverty and social inequality. Education undoubtedly helps children acquire basic life skills and competencies that are so necessary and important for their full personal development. Education helps children to develop holistically, facilitates their place in society, and enables them to attain a level of education together with the necessary skill set for their life satisfaction and employment opportunity in life. Education is, after all, a right. Education is key to help end poverty. Quality education may be linked to many different factors. Governments therefore need to reflect about their respective educational systems. They need to reflect together with all stakeholders in the sector, including educators, other complementary professionals, civil society organizations, parents, and children themselves. Every child has the right to a quality education. We need to ensure that children at risk of poverty and social exclusion have an effective access to quality education. Healthcare is another important pillar of the child guarantee. Investing in high-quality healthcare and services in the early years is another key factor towards children reaching their full potential, their growth and development. All children need nurturing, care, and health services to survive and thrive. And let us not forget the importance of having quality healthcare that starts from the prenatal period and extends through the pregnancy and beyond to ensure that the child is born in a thriving environment which can nurture it up to adulthood. A worrying concern exacerbated by the pandemic is the issue of children's mental health. This is an area within the health spectrum where our governments need to invest to ensure that children today will not suffer loss of childhood and later their well-being in life. Good nutrition is another important pillar that the child guarantee addresses. During the first 1,000 days from pregnancy until a child's second birthday, good nutrition is critical for children to grow and develop to their full potential. Children in poverty are denied access to good nutrition. Children have spoken through a report by Eurochild published earlier this year entitled Growing in Lockdown. It is clearly said that the closing down of schools during lockdown did not only deny vulnerable children of their education, but also from their school lunches. A growing concern which national governments need to address is childhood obesity. Statistics are showing alarming figures of having increasing numbers of children who are overweight and obese with increased risk of health problems. Research shows a direct link between obesity and socioeconomic status, as well as the need to look at this issue from a multidisciplinary perspective. The Child Guarantee is providing us with a great opportunity. Let us ensure that each and every pillar emphasized in the Child Guarantee is effectively implemented at the national level. We cannot waste this opportunity. At least 1 in 4 children in the European Union are at risk of poverty or social exclusion. All European countries have children at risk of poverty and social exclusion. No matter how high their GDP is or how strong their social protection systems are. In every single EU member state, there are children growing up denied of their basic human rights, who experience inequalities each and every day of their lives, who are hindered from reaching their full potential, who cannot enjoy life in a safe environment. Moreover, we are even more concerned with the effects of the COVID crisis on children, on young people, and on families across Europe. Eurochild's national member organizations are witnessing on a daily basis a dire combination of financial stress, uncertainty over the future, mental health problems, the educational and the digital divide, and increased violence against children. This is a reality that the European Union cannot accept. The EU institutions and member states must act now and capitalize on the critical new instruments at our disposal. Children are not only the future of Europe, but a vibrant and fundamental part of the present. We must respect children, engage with children, protect them, and treat them as valued contributors to our society. We are convinced that guaranteeing Children's equal opportunities is also guaranteeing a future for our societies, our planet, and our democracy. As often mentioned by Commissioner Schmidt, it is not possible to build a strong and fair Europe without investing in children. The Child Guarantee Council recommendation and the EU strategy on the rights of the child are important steps in the right direction, but on their own, they will not be enough. Child poverty is a burden on Europe's future prosperity and stability. Children need and deserve a strong and sincere political commitment together with political determination to act. We need long-term strategies. We need effective action plans. We need comprehensive policies. We need innovative instruments. We need committed politicians who understand that children's rights are human rights and that every child matters, no matter what. We need our governments to be bold. There is no more time to shy away. Children have waited for far too long. No child should be left behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Eurochild is a really important organization in Europe that joins so many civil society organizations with the same aim, promoting and improving children's rights. It would be great if we built a society where all children and young people grow up happy, healthy, confident, and respected as individuals in their own right. There were some problems with the connection of Vice President Šuica. She now has other meetings, but she really wished to deliver her speech. So invite the Chief of Cabinet to deliver her message.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me. Yes.
Yes,
first of all, I start by apologizing on behalf of Vice President Šuica. As was mentioned, there were some technical issues to connect, but she was very keen that her message is delivered. So she has asked me to deliver it on her behalf, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to do so. So leaving no one behind is very much a principle that is guiding the work of Vice President Šuica on democracy and demography. Her work is very much about people and reaches across all generations. Today, this is the leitmotif in the context of the European Child Guarantee. Obviously, the COVID pandemic, as was mentioned by a number of other speakers, has tested very, very much not only the realization of the rights of all children, but also their socioeconomic inclusion. We have seen rising levels of child poverty and the deepening of structural inequalities. The impact of poverty for children can be lifelong, with long-term implications for our societies and our economies. The climate crisis also threatens to roll back progress on children's rights. The adverse impacts of climate change and environmental degradation threaten health, food security, as well as the efforts to eradicate poverty. As we seek to emerge from the global pandemic, it is all the more important to strengthen the link between the realization of child rights, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and Agenda 2030. Therefore, we need to close the inequality gap that has been deepened by the pandemic and align our efforts with the global Leave No One Behind approach. As we tackle child poverty and exclusion, it is critical that we follow a child rights approach, which is underpinned by the general principles of the European Charter on Fundamental Rights and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. This rights-based approach also includes children who face one or multiple intersecting forms of discrimination, as well as disadvantaged children. The EU Comprehensive Strategy on the Rights of the Child, which we adopted earlier this year, highlights the specific needs of children for socioeconomic inclusion, and in this vein, we also consider support to families as being essential. The second thematic area of the strategy relates to ensuring equal opportunities for children. It encompasses three key areas: child poverty and social inclusion, education, and healthcare. This is so important because still in 2020, 24.2% of children in the European Union were at risk of poverty or social exclusion, more than working-aged adults or older people. This is an unacceptable reality. If we are serious about wanting to put an end to the cycle of poverty and disadvantage across generations, we need to step up our efforts to strengthen the socioeconomic inclusion of all children. This will also help us achieve genuine intergenerational solidarity. Promoting equal opportunities is critical for children at a higher risk of discrimination and social exclusion. For example, some children who are living in rural and remote areas face challenges accessing services and proper digital connections. Children from ethnic minorities, migrants, asylum seekers, and children of parents who are out of work face higher cost-related barriers to education, such as for school trips, books, and school meals. Therefore, the realization of the rights of every child needs concerted efforts from several actors. Member states are key to ensure that children's rights are respected and promoted on the ground. The recommendation adopted by the Council on 14 June establishing the European Child Guarantee, which complements our child rights strategy, calls upon member states to guarantee access to quality key services for children in need and to support their families. Our ultimate aim is to help lift children and their families out of poverty and to ensure an equal start in life for every child. I want to repeat that, an equal start for every child. There are also issues that are being discussed with citizens during the Conference on the Future of Europe. With that in mind, I am encouraged to see that the pilot projects of the Child Guarantee are making good progress on the ground, including in Croatia. My colleague, Commissioner Nicholas Schmidt, Vice President's colleague, of course, has spoken in more detail about this. Fighting poverty and social exclusion cannot be successfully achieved without children. Children need to be consulted and need to be at the heart of our efforts. Therefore, both the European Union's Child Rights Strategy and Child Guarantee have been developed together with children, not only for children. The European Commission is determined to leave no child behind. In our work with our partners, we must reach out to the most vulnerable children, to improve their health, to invest in their education, and strengthen child protection systems. Investing in children and young persons contributes to the achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goal 1 by breaking the intergenerational cycles of disadvantage. Europe needs the vision, engagement, and participation of all children and young people to build a better future that is greener, more inclusive, and digitally accessible to all. This will also be a key objective of the 2022 European Year of Youth. Here, I think about a 15-year-old boy from Cyprus who contributed to both the Child Rights Strategy and the Child Guarantee. He reminds us of our common goal when he said, "Children do not just want to survive, we want to live, we want to thrive." Let us ensure that each and every child and young person inside the European Union, and indeed beyond, can live up to their full potential and realize their dreams. Thank you very, very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for delivering Mrs. Schwitz's message. I would also like to thank all the speakers for their inspiring opening speeches. Today, there are more than 300 registered participants and many more who watch the conference via different channels. This is really exciting and tells us how relevant the European Child Guarantee is for all of us. But we must continue with our schedule. Before starting the working session 1, we will show you another video which was recorded by a colleague from Slovenia, Rania, who is a member of Your Child's Children's Council. In her speech, she will share her views on the Child Guarantee.
Ko govorimo o pravicah otrok in zagotavljanju njihovega dostopa do ključnih storitev, ne smemo pozabiti na migrantske otroke in otroke brez spremstva. Za priseljenske otroke je pomembno, da se čim prej vključijo v nove vrtce in šole, saj se tako lahko najhitreje naučijo novega jezika in kulture ter vključijo v novo okolje in družbo. Migrantske družine s predšolskimi otroki ponavadi nimajo dovolj finančnih sredstev za kritje vseh stroškov vrtca. Predšolska vzgoja mora biti brez obravnave brezplačna za vse otroke, ki prihajajo iz družin prosilcev za azil, beguncev ali državljanov tretjih držav. Skrbi za varstvo mlajših se nikakor ne sme prelagati na starejše otroke, temveč morajo za to poskrbeti centri za socialno delo ali nevladne organizacije. V vrtcih, kjer je več otrok iz iste etične ali jezikovne skupine, se mora zagotoviti medkulturni mediator, ki govori ta določen jezik, na primer albanski. On lahko s svojim znanjem dostopa do bolj socialno izoliranih otrok in spodbudi njihovo vključevanje v novo okolje. Nujno je, da se v iskanju rešitev za težave vključuje tudi starše in družino otroka. Pomembno je, da se vse to zagotovi tudi predšolskim otrokom brez spremstva, za katere skrb prevzamejo krizni centri ali rejniki. Izobraževanje je za otroke iz migrantskih družin že brezplačno, saj imajo enake pravice kot otroci državljani. Pomembno pa je, da se nudi podpora otrokom in njihovim družinam, na primer pri prevozu do šolo. Pri mladoletnikih brez spremstva, ki imajo v enotah nastanitve zagotovljeno le osnovno oskrbo, pa bi bilo potrebno zagotoviti sredstva za kritje šolskih stroškov ter stroškov obšolskih aktivnostih in opreme za njih. Pomembno je, da imajo v sklopu šolske prehrane vsi otroci zagotovljeni en topel zdrav obrok dnevno. Šolska prehrana naj bo za migrantske otroke deloma ali polno subvencionirana, kot za slovenske otroke iz ogroženih družin. Mladoletniki brez spremstva naj imajo vso prehrano zagotovljeno strani šole ali nastanitve. Dostop do zdrave prehrane za migrantske otroke se lahko poveča tudi preko predstavljanja načel zdrave prehrane za starše v okviru predavanj, kuharskih delavnic, video vsebin in podobno. Lahko pa se subvencionira lokalne restauracije, ki v migrantskih predelih mesta delijo brezplačne ali močno subvencionirane zdrave obroke. Zdravstveno varstvo je v Sloveniji že brezplačno. Za učinkovit dostop ali izvajanje zdravstvenih storitev pa je potrebno, da so napisane in zdravstvenim domovom podane jasne smernice glede kritja stroškov zdravljenja mladoletnikov brez spremstva, da se zdravstveni delavci zavežejo k enakovredni zdravstveni in zobozdravstveni obravnavi mladoletnikov brez spremstva in migrantskih otrok. Vsako diskriminatorno delovanje je nedopustno. Da se zaposli medkulturni mediator za zdravstvene obravnave migrantov, tako otrok kot odraslih. Nikakor pa naj se otroci ne uporabljajo kot prevajalci za svoje starše. Vsi otroci imajo pravico do dostojne nastanitve. CSD-ji morajo deloma ali polno subvencionirati najemnine stanovanj v enaki meri za migrantske kot slovenske družine. Mladoletniki brez spremstva imajo pravico do varne nastanitve 24-urno strokovno oskrbo. Za izboljšano in učinkovito celostno oskrbo za mladoletnike brez spremstva je nujno, da se to oblikuje sistemsko.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Bilal and Ariela, for the excellent work that you have done in the opening part and how well you managed to adopt the changes of the program. And as for Ranya's video, I have to say that Rania is also UNICEF ambassador and that she texted and recorded the video herself. So well done, Rania, too. You are so elaborated and your views are so clear. Now we are a bit tight on a schedule, but before we move with our program, I would like to share some technical information for you. The discussion will take place after the second working session. Please post your questions in the chat on the right side of your screen. And please do not forget to note to which speaker you're addressing the question to. Also, I would kindly like to ask our speakers to stay with us through the discussions and during the discussion so that you can participate when the questions are directed to you. We hope to be able to answer a lot of questions, but I'm sure that there will be many more. Another piece of information, we have a two-question poll for today's conference. The first question is on the areas of the recommendation, and the second on the specific groups of children in need from the recommendation. The poll will be open during both working sessions until 11:30. Please vote and let us know what you think, where we need more information. It will be helpful for the next phases of implementation. And now we will move to the first working session. Slovenian presidency, as was already said, would like to contribute to effective implementation of the Council recommendation. We would like to shed light on different aspects to help all stakeholders for the future work. Let me present our 5 panelists for the first session. First, we have Jiří Schwarz. Jiří is the head of unit from the European Commission. Then we have Peter Lely. He's the chair of the Social Protection Committee. The next is Valeria Setti. She's Commission coordinator for the rights of the child. Daniel Mulinueva. He's a social policy economist from UNICEF. And the last speaker in the first working session will be Urban Bolka. He's a researcher from the Social Protection Institute from the Republic of Slovenia. We are a bit out of our schedule, so please, I would kindly ask our speakers, panelists, to respect the time limit. So let's go to the first speaker, Jerzy Schwarz. The mission of your unit is to strengthen the social dimension of Europe, enhance the European social model, and also support the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights, including Principle 11 about the child guarantee. Can you, Jerzy, please share with us some facts and key principles of the Council recommendation on the child guarantee?
Yes, hi. Many thanks for the introduction. It's a great privilege to be here with you today in such a distinguished community. I will try to recall a bit the rationale of the child guarantee. I will at the same time try to activate my PowerPoint, which is probably coming. Yes, I hope you can see that. You can see that well. It's been very encouraging to hear the previous speakers. That gives us a very strong political signal, and also it's important to have such a great political commitment here with us. I would first start with the challenge that is ahead of us, and the challenge is still huge. We still have too many children in risk of poverty or social exclusion. And what we also see is that poverty and social exclusion disproportionately affect children from disadvantaged backgrounds. Depending on different member states, the risk of poverty can be up to 3 times higher than for children raised in, for example, single parents household, or children with disability, or children with migrant background, and so on. Obviously, the impact of COVID is still likely to exacerbate this challenge, and we will be faced with its implications for immediate future. You can see the figures of children in poverty based on recent update of statistics, and I also need to note that there is a slight increase, especially because of a slight change of methodology in one of the countries. Poverty is not just lack of financial resources, it is a multidimensional change. And it is linked to social exclusion and lack of access to services. Many of them have already been mentioned. There is an ample evidence that children from disadvantaged backgrounds face particular difficulties in accessing those services. And therefore, the child guarantee has been constructed as a very targeted initiative. It focuses on very specific groups of children and on a very specific set of key services. When the initiative was designed, we wanted to be really concrete and to make sure that the initiative reaches those in need. The underlying rationale is that disadvantaged groups needs an extra assistance to have equal opportunities. They need an extra effort from the society to ensure that they can access all the various services. Next slide, yes. It's been also mentioned, and it's very true, that the child guarantee will not solve child poverty on its own. It needs to be part of a wider efforts. It is indeed not a new priority for the Commission. Already in 2013, the Commission adopted the recommendation on investing in children. This is still very much valid, and it will continue to working with this recommendation. It is also an integral part of the European Pillar of Social Rights, complemented by other initiatives that aim to address poverty, improve welfare, and also enhance equal opportunities. It's been already mentioned that it complements the wider strategy on the rights of the child that addresses child rights from all dimensions. The next slide. Yes. The target group. The departing point for us is children in poverty or social exclusion. This is those are those that are under age of 18 and that fall into this category. But within this group, this is very heterogeneous group, and within this group, we want to make sure that we specifically pay attention to certain groups that face particular disadvantages. They have been mentioned. They are also listed on the slide. And these categories we jointly refer as children in need. And on this basis, we would like the member states to identify the children in need in their countries, to set their own definitions and priorities for interventions. This is because we understand very well that the groups in different member states have different characteristics and require different interventions. The child guarantee is specifically about the set of the 6 services as they are shown on the screen. It distinguishes between free and effective access. The first 4 services that relate to early childhood education and care, education and school-based activities, healthcare, and at least 1 healthy meal each day should be provided for free for children in need. And this is an important message that we are giving to those in economic difficulties. The other 2 areas that are covered by the guarantee are healthy nutrition and adequate housing. And there we talk about effective access. It is our joint obligation to ensure that the households with children in need do have access also to adequate housing and healthy nutrition. I have already mentioned that the child guarantees or the specific set of services will not provide for all the solutions. That's why I would like to bring to your attention what we call the enabling policy framework in the child guarantee recommendation. This provides for a set of priority actions that we should put in place to address poverty of children in its wider sense. Goes beyond the 6 services mentioned. And we consider this enabling policy framework vital for the success of the recommendation. And we would also expect that this would be concern for the European Child Guarantee coordinators. For example, it is important that the principles of the Child Guarantee are well embedded in wider strategies that deal with health, education in general, social inclusion, etc. The next slide. Yes, the next slide shows the funding that we from the European budget offer at the disposal of member states to also finance actions to implement the child guarantee. It was already mentioned that this is again not the only source. There is much more that needs to be done with various national resources, but we believe it provides for a very useful trigger of different actions that may take place in the member states. I should highlight the European Social Fund Plus that does have a dedicated envelope to fight child poverty, but there's also other array of EU funding that is put at disposal. In terms of governance, it's been mentioned already that the child guarantee coordinators were nominated by the member states. What is important is that the work starts on identifying children in need and obviously on drafting the national action plans that are due March next year. I would highlight the involvement of the relevant stakeholders in preparing the action plans, but also in implementing and monitoring the child guarantee, because this is obviously a joint responsibility. There is no one institution or one ministry that can manage to eradicate effectively child poverty on its own. It's a joint effort that requires all stakeholders to join forces. From the Commission side, we would obviously provide all support possible to the child guarantee coordinators. The recommendation also invites us to monitor the implementation of the child guarantee in the European semester, and it also invites us, together with the Social Protection Committee, to develop a common monitoring framework and report and review regularly the progress. One of the recent achievements that are relevant in this sense is benchmarking framework on childcare and support to children that the Social Protection Committee has agreed to. I will not go through all the indicators that were agreed, but it shows that there is indeed dedicated support from the committee, from the member states, to address and to monitor the developments that relate to the child guarantee. And in order to be specific, I would maybe highlight one more figure that comes from the benchmarking agreed, and that is the attendance of children in early childhood education and care. We can see very well that there is still a relatively high gap between attendance of poor and richer children. On average, this gap is around 20 or over 20 percentage points in the EU, and this shows us there is a lot to do. There is no reason why children from poor households should be attending childcare facilities less than their richer peers. As for the future work streams ahead, We intend to organize regular meeting of the child guarantee coordinators, because there is a very important aspect of mutual learning among member states, to make sure that we can learn from the good practices of other countries. We will further provide guidance and other assistance in elaboration of the action plans. This is going to be a busy period now. There's only 4 months to prepare to finalize the national action plans. We are very glad and grateful that there are a number of presidency initiatives, both from the Portuguese presidency, from the Slovenian presidency, and we estimate also from the upcoming French presidency. So this gives us a very good working framework. I've already mentioned the EU funds that is now being programmed in most instances. So now is the time to influence where the funding measures go. We also understand that there is quite high interest in the technical support facility. That's one of the funding instruments that provides a technical assistance to member states in various areas, in this case, child guarantee. We will certainly hear much more about the pilot project by UNICEF that we jointly run. European semester is a process where we monitor also, among others, policies related to labor markets and inclusion, and we will also integrate the child guarantee monitoring there. Now the member states have also been invited to set their national poverty targets. It's been already mentioned that the European Pillar of Social Rights Action Plan envisages or commits us to decrease the number of people in poverty by 15 million, and at least 5 million of this should be children. And now we are looking for member states to provide their own national targets, and we hope that they will be ambitious and they will go beyond what is envisaged at the EU level. And there will be quite some work for the Social Protection Committee, but I will not go into that because the upcoming speaker will certainly mention that. So this is all I wanted to mention, and I forgot to change the slide, but that does not certainly it's not a problem. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward for the fruitful debate later on. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Jiří, for your comprehensive and very clear presentation, in which our audience and the participants who do not know so much about the child guarantee received a lot of useful information. Let us now proceed with Peter Lilly, who has been elected at the start of the 2021 as the Social Protection Committee Chair, and he will share with us some findings on the recent September discussion on the SPC. So please, Mr. Lilly.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. First of all, good morning to all participants. Allow me to first thank the Presidency for inviting me to report on some of the recent work of the Social Protection Committee, which I'm currently chairing. The Social Protection Committee is in fact an advisory committee to the European Council of Ministers of Social Affairs, the so-called EPSCO Council, and it consists of delegates of the Member States and the European Commission. We have been involved in the issue or the topic of child poverty and well-being for a long time now. I think already in 2007, we had a thematic year on child poverty in the context of the social open method of coordination. And thematic year was actually a time when we really used all the resources we had at our disposal. So mutual learning, scientific research, stakeholder consultation to come up with really new learning on how to tackle child poverty and how to improve child well-being. So the analytical tools and the policy recommendations we developed after 2007 have certainly contributed to the Commission recommendation on investing in children that was published in 2013 as part of the social investment package. Since then, the committee has continuously monitored child poverty and well-being through its annual report. If you've never looked at it, please go and find it on the website. There's the Commission website where you can find the SPC information. And you will see that the annual report each year gives you kind of an analytical overview of the social situation. It contains some key messages to be directed in the new semester process. And it also contains, and that's important, country-specific fiches which have a section on investing in children, so quite detailed indicators on child poverty and well-being. Since then, we have continually tried to improve on our monitoring of child poverty and well-being. And just to give you a few examples, in 2017, we adopted a child-specific material deprivation indicator. And only 2 weeks ago, in fact, we completed our work on a benchmarking framework on childcare and support to children. Jitsi just showed you a slide where you have the different indicators that have been developed or that will be part of this monitoring framework. There's still a lot of work to develop it further, but we still already have a kind of a starting basis for benchmarking the results of policies across member states. So another thing we do is that every year we review the implementation of the country-specific recommendations on child poverty addressed to member states in the context of the European semester. Sometimes we do it together with the Employment Committee if there's an employment issue related to the issue of social inclusion and social protection. In addition, we regularly hold peer reviews where our members share their best practices and their views on specific national policy initiatives. We also hold thematic reviews, which regularly feed into Council conclusions. And just to give you one example, in 2018, under the Bulgarian presidency, we contributed to Council conclusions on early childhood education and care. We have also been involved in the preparation of the European Child Guarantee, and the inputs from our members have been reflected in the Commission proposal, and we will soon start work on monitoring the framework, on the monitoring framework under the recommendation. As Jitsi already pointed out, there's a lot of work to be done, and we will certainly invest in it in the coming months and years. Now, recently at our September meeting, hosted by the Slovenian presidency, our members exchanged views on the issue of the European Child Guarantee, with a focus on the elaboration of the national plans under the guarantee and on the role also of the national child guarantee coordinators. If you allow me, I will now like to share some of the findings of this thematic discussion we had on the child guarantee. First of all, in their interventions, our members confirmed strong support and a high level of engagement for the swift and full implementation of the recommendation. I must say I had the impression that there really was a positive vibe in the virtual room. Many delegations described the various steps that are being taken to deliver by March 22 the plans requested under the recommendation. And a key starting point for many is the identification indeed of the groups at risk, the children in need, the challenges, and the possible measures that could be adequate to tackle those challenges. And to that end, many member states have reported on performing a thorough gap analysis and audits in cooperation with various stakeholders. The early involvement of civil society organizations, social partners, and the different levels of government, both horizontal and sectoral and vertical, has been identified as a particularly important enabling factor for the implementation phase of the recommendation. Several member states emphasized their intentions to build on already existing national plans and strategies related to the well-being of children and to the reduction of poverty and social exclusion overall. In terms of challenges in the development of the plans, most intervening member states have referred to areas where the responsibilities are indeed divided between different ministries or levels of government. To address these and to ensure an effective coordination between institutions and sectoral policies, most member states reported establishing interinstitutional working groups. The key role, of course, of the national child guarantee coordinators in bringing together different stakeholders was acknowledged by all intervening member states. The importance of designating a senior official with good knowledge of the issue of child poverty as a national coordinator was emphasized. The coordinator should be someone who can reach out, can mobilize resources across different policy areas and levels of government, and is capable of bringing together civil society and other stakeholders. To support the coordinator, several member states have reported on the designation of single points of contact in different and the relevant ministries. Many delegations have also stressed the importance of robust data and the need for a monitoring framework to track the implementation of the recommendation. The current work of the indicator subgroup of the committee I'm chairing, the SPC, on developing a benchmarking framework for childcare and support to children was highlighted as a major positive development in this respect. And the debate was further enriched by examples of cross-cutting approaches, innovative projects, and envisaged actions. These are the key messages of our discussion, which I wanted to share with you. Our intention is to follow up on this discussion next year in 2022, and we will continue to serve as a forum for exchange between the member states and the Commission. And I'm looking forward to the outcome, of course, of this event today for inspiration of our future work. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Lely. Indeed, you have shown us the importance of the continuity of work. Now we move to Valeria. Valeria and her team, they take care that, and they make sure that the child rights are considered in all relevant policies and actions of the European Commission. So Valeria, you are also responsible for the EU strategy on the rights of the child. How will the European Child Guarantee contribute to strengthening the child rights in Europe?
Thank you, Rusica, for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to this conference. I think it's very important to, I'm very happy to be able to contribute to the reflection by bringing in the rights of the child perspective and linking the work that at EU level we've been doing on the child guarantee with the work that we've been doing more broadly to protect and promote the rights of the child. I'll share a few slides, so I hope this will work. I think you can see my screen now.
We can see it perfectly.
Excellent. So we've been hearing about the child population in the European Union earlier from earlier speakers. I think I just want to recall that we're talking about every individual between 0 and 18 years old. That makes up for more than 18% of the total population in the European Union today. And children are entitled to a specific set of rights because they are children. So a specific set of civil, political, socioeconomic and cultural rights that they have and that also carry responsibilities for governments and authorities to protect and promote these rights for children. These are enshrined in international and EU legal frameworks. So in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child that all EU member states have ratified, but also the Treaty of the European Union and the EU Charter for Fundamental Rights. And I think it's very important to recall that promoting and protecting the rights of all children is an objective of the European Union. And so the EU strategy on the rights of the child, which is the most recent policy strategic frameworks for this area of work, really sets out what are the priorities for the European Commission in the years to come in this field. So the strategy was adopted the very day as the very same day as the proposal for the Council recommendation on a European child guarantee, and it looks at all those areas of EU policies that have an impact on the rights of children, and it also looks at all the comprehensive rights that children have as enshrined in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. So the strategy sets out 6 thematic priorities that I'm going to go through in a second, and also has a 7th chapter which describes how we intend in the European Commission to better embed children's rights in all our work. Of course, the work of the European Union to promote child rights doesn't stop at the borders of the EU. So we have a responsibility in fulfilling the rights of children in our internal policies, but also in our external policies, in the work that we do with third countries. And this is the last thematic priority of the strategy, looks at the external dimension of our work in this field. Now, the strategy also starts from the departing point that children's rights are universal, and every child, no matter their age, their origin, their background, their religion, their sexual orientation, they enjoy the same rights as every other child. But of course, it also recognizes that there are specific groups of children that face additional challenges or that have specific needs. And of course, the Child Guarantee very much looks at specific groups of children and at children in need. So this is reflected as well in the strategy. And this is also linked to many other strategic or strategies or strategic frameworks that the European Commission has been adopting in these recent times. Of course, the promotion of the rights of the child goes hands in hands with the promotion of the rights of people with disabilities, for example, or the rights of LGBTI people, or with gender equality. So the rights of the child strategy and the issue of promoting and protecting children's rights need to be seen in the broader context of promoting a union of values, of rights and equality. And the last general thing I want to mention on the strategy is that it contains more than 40 actions that the European Commission will implement during the mandate of the current Commission, but it also contains recommendations for member states, highlighting how the fulfillment of children's rights is, of course, very much a joint effort, and we all have a role to play in this. Now, the head of the Vice President Cabinet already mentioned it briefly this morning, but I want to take a minute to talk to you about this. The strategy was really the first policy document at EU level that was developed together with children. Ahead of the strategy and the Child Guarantee, the Commission conducted a big consultation with children worldwide, and thanks really to the efforts of organizations such as UNICEF and Eurochild and others that have allowed us to reach out to children. So we tried to incorporate as much as possible children's suggestions and children's views in defining the priorities and the actions of the strategy itself. And next to that, we've also been working with children to develop some child-friendly versions of the strategy. So to translate the strategy in a language that children find easy and accessible and understandable. And this is very important because it's the first step towards making sure that we actually engage children in our work and in decision-making processes. It's really, it all starts with information. And it's been an incredibly rewarding and interesting work, and the Commission intends not to only produce the strategy in a child-friendly version, but also other key existing and future EU legal instruments. And also in the strategy itself, we've put a lot of emphasis and a lot of importance on the topic of the participation of children to the democratic and political life of the EU. As a European institution, we are conscious of the need to be closer to citizens and to engage with citizens more Again, the head of cabinet, Suica, has mentioned the Conference on the Future of Europe as one of the avenues in which we are doing this. But of course, children have the right to participate and have the right to express their views on matters that concern them, and for their views to be duly taken into account. And so it is our responsibility and member states' responsibility to create spaces for children to do that. So in these slides, you can see the 6 thematic priorities of the strategy and the, let's say, 7th mainstreaming chapter. Now, I am very conscious of time today, so I don't have the time to go very much in depth in all the priorities, but I will say a couple of words each. The first one I've already mentioned is really the priority to create spaces for children to be included in the democratic life at European level in a meaningful and inclusive way. The second is, of course, the priority that relates the most to the European Child Guarantee and to the efforts that we are undertaking to combat child poverty. But this second priority also looks at the rights of the child to healthcare and to education. And this is, of course, not limited only to children in need, but it's very much a universal right. The third thematic priority looks at the phenomenon of violence. Violence intended in all its forms, from the most serious forms of violence to those forms of violence that are unfortunately still tolerated in our societies. I'm thinking of corporal punishment, for instance, in family settings. And so preventing and responding to violence in all its forms and strengthening child protection systems is the third priority of our strategy. The fourth one is promoting child-friendly justice. Again, we have many children in the EU that come in contact with the justice system for very different reasons and in very different contexts. But irrespective of those reasons and those contexts, it is very important that the contact that a child has with justice is a positive one and is one that respects the rights of the child. So again, this is an area where more work will be done at EU level in the coming years. The fifth priority relates to children's rights in the digital environment and is, of course, a very crucial and timely priority, given that the separation between offline and online world in our children's life is very often somehow blurred. And it is important that all the rights that children have in the offline world are also entitled in the online world. So this is another area on which our work will focus going forward. And the sixth thematic priority, which I briefly mentioned before, looks at the work of the European Union outside of the European Union in our development and cooperation work, in our humanitarian work, to make sure that we can be a champion for child rights globally and not only within our borders. So this was a very quick introduction to the strategy. I hope that this will leave you with the curiosity to know more about it. And just a few seconds to conclude and to perhaps put the emphasis on the most important messages that I would like to share today is that poverty and living in poverty for children really affects their ability to enjoy other rights. So the right to education, the right to health care, even though obligatory schools and basic healthcare can be free of charge in EU member states, there are costs that are associated to activities that relate to participation to school or to the need to healthcare. And the fact that when children live in poverty, their ability to see all of their rights fulfilled is affected. But one can think of the right to play, and children living in families in poverty sometimes have to work to support their families, have to take on responsibilities that normally would be taken on by parents or families. But children have to contribute, and they are therefore deprived of certain aspects of their childhood, but also the right to adequate nutrition. And the list is long, but it is very important in a way that we see the child guarantee as a concrete deliverable of the broader obligations that we have at member state level and at European Union level to protect and fulfill all the rights of the child. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Valeria, and thank you also for emphasizing that child guarantee is deliverable of the EU strategy on the rights of the child, and as well as we already know, also of the action plans for European social pillar. So now we move on to the data. The area of data, Daniel Molinuevo from the UNICEF ECARA will briefly describe some of the main findings of a review of the studies that they carried out recently for the phase 3 of the pilot project. So please, Mr. Molinuevo, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. I hope that you can see my presentation now.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. I'm delighted to be able to present today some of the findings of a report that we published last week, and that deals with how to improve the integration and the coordination of the public policies that are part of the European Child Guarantee. And the reason we've carried out this research is that all the country reports that are being conducted as part of the third and final preparatory phase of the Child Guarantee note the complexity and the challenges associated with the governance and coordination of the Child Guarantee. This is a guarantee that has 6 areas of intervention that are the responsibility of public and private providers, according to the welfare arrangements of each member state, and that within the public sector, there are also the responsibility of different levels of public administration. So we have, because of its complexity, that some country reports go as far as to say that this successful coordination is a precondition for the successful implementation of the guarantee. And they note some aspects to take into account, like, for instance, the need to strengthen the role of local authorities when it comes to horizontal cooperation at the local level, and also note the need to pay particular attention to vertical coordination between different levels of public administration in the centralized member states. Well, in addition to this information, we wanted to cast a wider net and gather evidence from further member states. And we've done that in the form of what is called a rapid evidence assessment. And rapid evidence assessments are a type of literature review that has a higher level of methodological complexity and rigorosity than your traditional literature review when it comes to assess and synthesize the evidence coming from studies of the topic at hand. In this case, we're looking at studies that identify enabling or facilitating factors when it comes to establish effective cooperation, or on the contrary, factors that are an obstacle or hinder the coordination of the public policies that are part of the Child Guarantee. Now, I'm not going to go into detail into the methodology, but just to show you the level of rigor and complexity, we started our initial searches with an initial set of studies of 1,700 studies. And after applying a set of eligibility criteria and filtering mechanisms, we ended up with 25 studies in the rapid evidence assessment in the languages that are listed in the slide, and coming from the member states in blue in the slide, where you also have the number of studies found in the 5 countries in which we found more studies. And once we have that set of facilitating and hindering factors, what we did is we classified them and grouped them thematically. And then we didn't really do a hierarchy or a ranking according to the number of times these factors were mentioned, but we did try to set categories according to the number of times it was mentioned, because that allows us to have an overview or a general sense what are the obstacles that can be anticipated, and what are the issues or reforms that can be taken, that can be prioritized in order to have these facilitating factors in place. So what I'm going to do today is, for time's sake, I'm just going to focus on the top three when it comes to the number of times these categories were quoted. And then we start with the third place. When it comes to the number of studies, we have what we could call resource management. And that was a type of factors listed in 16 studies, which interestingly enough is more studies than those talking about the actual resources that are available. And that's interesting because we tend to put a lot of emphasis on the budget and the stuff available for cooperation, and rightly so. But here there was more interest in the management of the resources that were already existing. More specifically, what was noted as a facilitator or a bar is whether it was possible or not to have resources specifically devoted to integration and coordination, rather than having policy coordination and integration as yet another task to be done with the same level of resources. In similar vein, we had that the willingness of shared resources amongst those parties cooperating was meant to be not only a commitment, but also it contributed to have less fragmented budgets, which allows in turn to have a more flexible type of funding that allows to set adequate incentives and to react to issues that come up with cooperation, together with another aspect that is important to take into account, which is the necessity to have reliable funding, which is an issue very often when we have ad hoc one-off projects where there's funding for one phase and that is no longer available, or is not clear whether it's going to be available or not. Secondly, we have a set of factors that we could perhaps define as managerial strategies that appears in 21 of the 25 studies that we selected. And what's interesting here for the child guarantee is that there's a lot of emphasis in the shared responsibility for cross-sectoral management. So there's one national coordinator, but it's important to put in place mechanisms whereby all parties cooperating and coordinated, they feel a sense of shared responsibility, of ownership and co-creation when it comes to the implementation and the design of the child guarantee. We've also have a set of factors that won't surprise anyone because of its general nature, like the need to have effective leadership, management, and oversight in terms of the monitoring of the day-to-day management of the cooperation. But we also have more specific examples. I have in the third bullet point here an example that comes from a study from Italy, where they noted that having a sort of center of operations or a operational nucleus and coaches that supported the coordination at the regional level and also provided advice when it comes to overcome challenges in this coordination was really a crucial factor for the successful implementation of initiative that aim to prevent children going into residential care in some regions in Italy. And then lastly, we have a set of factors that is mentioned in most of the studies that we gather, and it's a long list of factors there. I won't go into detail in all of the categories here, but suffice to say that structural aspects and processes involves things like having joint training opportunities, for example, for staff that come from different agencies, that allows to have a similar level of skills amongst staff from all those agencies coordinating, to use the same terminology, so to speak the same language, and also an opportunity to meet, which is also another enabling factor that has been identified, the need to have joint working spaces, which doesn't have to be physical working spaces, particularly in this day and age. And there are some studies that mention how having WhatsApp groups has allowed to cooperate better with one another. And these type of enabling factors come to mitigate or tackle one issue that is crucial with the child guarantee, which is the segregated organization of services. Social housing services are very different from early childhood education and care and its governance. And so we need to have these enabling factors in place to ensure that at best we have shared goals and vision, but at the very least that we have a set of common goals or goals from the individual agencies that are not in contradiction with one another, and so that there's not contradictory incentives for individual agencies when it comes to joint cooperation in the framework of the child guarantee and their existing individual goals and objectives. So just to summarize, what will be important for national coordinators, according to the research we've gathered, to take into account when it comes to establish the governance of the design and implementation of the child guarantee? Well, as I said before, it's important to allow to have joint training opportunities and joint working spaces. And this is something that not only features very strongly in the research that we've done in this rapid evidence assessment, but also in the country studies that I referred to at the beginning of my presentation, where the mismatch of skills and the fact that all parties cooperating that actually meet is noted repeatedly as a barrier. Once again, this joint cross-sectoral management, which is also highlighted, particularly in the country reports in federal member states, which encourage the national coordinators to avail in as much as possible to existing intragovernmental structures and cooperation mechanisms between the different levels of public administration. And lastly, the need to have resources specifically allocated to policy integration and to ensure that the economic incentives and the goals between different agencies are congruent with the overall incentives and goals of the European Child Guarantee. So that we go beyond this rhetorical type of coordination, where everyone agrees in principle that it's important to cooperate and work with one another, and have a meaningful and properly resourced cooperation in the framework of the Child Guarantee. So that's all from me, and I thank you for your attention. You have there my email address in case you have any comments and queries, as well as the link to the report that we published last week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Molinuevo. It was very interesting, and I see two very strong points from your speech. The first, that you drew attention to the enabling and hindering factors that can impact the policy measures, and another that not only collaboration, but the joint working spaces are really important that we are successful for the future. So let's now move to our last speaker on this panel. But before that, I would like to ask you again, participants, please ask your questions into the chat. So Urban, can you tell us more about how can we measure complex social phenomena, and how can we use the existing databases to do that?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ružica, for the question. I think my whole presentation will be one complex attempt to answer this complex question. I will give you an overview of a project we did a couple of years ago. It's an ongoing project on child well-being, on developing an index of child well-being, and it's not directly linked to the child guarantee, but in the end, I hope that I will get back to the child guarantee and show how these tools that we have developed can be of benefit also when deciding on which groups of children to focus and which areas or domains of well-being to prioritize. So do you see my screen?
We see you.
Ah, just me. Okay.
Okay. Still you.
Now it's fine. Huh? Is it okay?
We still you. We still see you, Urban. Mm-hmm. Now me.
Okay. Okno.
Your presentation is online, right?
Yes, yes.
Or maybe there is some difference about how we do it.
I think it will work now. So are you sharing my screen or am I sharing your screen? I mean my screen.
I'm not sure. Let me check, Urban.
Okay, so I will start screen sharing. Okay. Aha, now it will work. It will work now. Okay.
You have to share the window. Okay.
Yeah, now it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so, okay. So sorry for this delay. I don't have much time left now because we're so, so late already. Okay. So yeah, I'm basically a researcher. I worked at the Social Protection Institute of the Republic of Slovenia, and I am working in the field of applied research. So this means that we're not interested just in finding out about well-being, child well-being in Europe, about the results, about the scores of different countries. But we want to make these findings beneficial for the policy decision makers and public in general. So let me, yeah, so the structure of my presentation will have three broad parts. Firstly, I will address the issue of the need for data to have policy relevance. Then we will discuss briefly the design of our child well-being index. And in the last part of presentation, I will be discussing some advantages of this child well-being index and the website and the tools and functionalities we have developed, because we think that of course there are many different child well-being indices already available and in use. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to develop a website with different functionalities, where these functionalities can be seen as a step forward in analyzing the factors affecting the child well-being in European context. So first of all, this is the basic question we are dealing with when discussing child well-being with policymakers and decision makers, policy designers and decision makers. So what is the level of child well-being in certain country? This question seems relatively simple, but it definitely is not. First of all, we have to decide on the definition of child well-being we will be using, and then we have to decide on how we will measure the level of this complex social phenomena that is child well-being. So when it comes to definition, we see child well-being as being a multi-dimensional concept. So it is not a concept that can be measured using one descriptive indicator, but instead we have to create, we have to include different dimensions, I don't know, from material well-being, health and safety, behaviors and risks, education. So of course, well-being cannot be seen just as a poverty issue, but all these different dimensions have to be included. What is also important is that we have to include objective and subjective elements when discussing child well-being. It's really important that we see the point of view of children and are not patronizingly viewing the well-being of children as seen by adults, but the answers or the indicators we are including in the index have to come from subjective ideas of well-being of children. So the next issue is how to measure it. We have to have in mind that working for the policymakers, we have this situation that you can see in the field in my presi, where we as researchers have different data and are sure that this data can in fact be understood by policymakers. On the other hand, we have policymakers who, of course, cannot understand data as they have, different issues on her plate, his or her plate. They don't have time. So we have to make this data as user-friendly as possible in order to assure that the policymakers will actually use them. Yeah, so which method of measuring child well-being in Europe have we chosen? We have to be aware that in recent years there has been a lot of academic interest in child well-being, a lot of policy as well as political interest, and all of this spurs a lot of research and a lot of data in child well-being. So we're faced with this mess of information on internet, which basically leads to lack of transparency and makes the policy decision-making very difficult, because policymakers are faced with the question of which data they should actually use and base their policymaking on. So we have decided to develop an index, a composite child well-being index, and to gather this data instead of leaving this decision to the policymakers, and develop a child well-being index, which can be then in fact used by the policymakers. So what is an index? Index is a composite indicator representing a certain complex social phenomena with a single value. Indices definitely have some advantages. They simplify the assessment and the monitoring of the child well-being, and they can also, if we have different points in time, enable us to analyze different trends in different domains of well-being. And of course, if we develop the index for different countries, they enable us to compare these countries, so international comparison. They also enable, and I will come back to this fact later when I will talk about guarantee, they also enable easier identification of several issues we find in certain well-being domains. All in all, they, of course, the indices should improve policy design and enable policymakers to develop better policies for children. So when we come to our design of our index, we included 7 domains, 31 indicators. We have developed the index both for girls and boys for different points in time and for 27 European states. This index is in fact heavily influenced by UNICEF's index from 2013, I believe. It has similar domains, also similar indicators, but as you will see, it makes this leap or step forward with being presented at the website and enable different functionalities for the user. Okay, one of the important features of the design of our child well-being index is also that it's based on, that it's really child-centered and that it's policy-focused. But overall, it's based on child well-being outcomes and not on structural factors affecting these outcomes. So it draws, in a way, a clear line between these outcomes and the social and economic surroundings, background in which these outcomes occur. So if, for instance, I give you one example, we are not measuring, I don't know, how many doctors there are, pediatricians, they are in Slovenia treating Slovene children, children in Slovenia, but instead we are focusing on whether Slovene children are actually healthy, or better said, whether they say they're healthy. So in which features our child well-being index is different from other indices? Yeah, our index, of course, has all these the same rankings. It has similar rankings. different maps where you can observe the child well-being across different countries, but it puts all these outcomes, because it's outcome-based, in these broader socioeconomic indicators and background. So here we have used different tools. One of them is scatter plot, and the other one is clustering of the countries. We have used also artificial intelligence, but all of this is important because we have tried to put ourselves in the mind of policymaker and how he or she would actually be using these tools. So if we go briefly to the website, here we can see child well-being index and different domains we have here. We can see that Norway is the first, followed by Finland, Netherlands, and so forth. But what I wanted to show you is something else. So we have this scatter plot, putting our child well-being index in here on the Y axis in correlation with GDP per capita or with any other indicators indicating socioeconomic background. So we can see that there's a clear correlation between child well-being index and GDP per capita. So we can play around here a bit, you know. We can, I don't know, we can find out whether subjective well-being is actually in correlation with GDP per capita, and we can see that it is not, which is, for instance, really interesting. Or at least the correlation is not as strong as it could be expected. Then we have these different features, and another one of them is clustering of different countries. So here you can see the clustering of all these 27 European countries, clustered according to 31 indicators used. And you can see that the countries which are closer to one another, closer together, are more similar to one another when it comes to these 31 indicators. So you can see that we have clear groups of countries. The circle, the size of the circle indicates the scores of child well-being in a certain country. So we can clearly see that we have different groups. So we have Finland, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, Denmark, and the Netherlands forming one group. Then we have Estonia, Slovenia, Austria forming the other group, and so on. Croatia, Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic forming the other. What's interesting here is that we can play around with this a bit. So if we for instance, if we for instance want to find out how we would push Slovenia, you know, to the group of countries which are score the highest according to child well-being index, we can improve some of the indicators. So, for instance, I know, for instance, that the domain behaviors and risks is the worst scoring domain for Slovenia. So we can see if Slovenia would move to another group, if we would improve in some of these indicators. So if we would improve children being overweight in Slovenia, and if we would, for instance, improve or prevent drug use in Slovenia, if we would convince children that they would eat breakfast daily more often, we already see that Slovenia is becoming part of the group that scores the highest, you know. So if Slovene children would not smoke as much as they would, then we push Slovenia in the group of countries with the highest scores, and Slovenia becomes more similar to these countries because we have improved the indicators forming this domain. So what this tells us from point of view of point of view of policymaker. So policymaker could, in fact, find out that Slovenia has the worst scores in behaviors and risks domain of the index, and he or she could actually find the proof that by improving the certain indicators within this domain, Slovenia could score higher on the general index, child well-being index, and could become more similar to the countries we aspire to be similar to. So I think that I have probably spent my time. Yeah. So I'm, of course, willing to answer any questions in the debate that will follow. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Urban, for your presentation. And I know that the complexity it's hard to be explained in so little time. So now we will have a short break. I'm sorry, but the perks of the digital environment means also that we started late due to some technical issues. So we have a 5 minutes break, not 10 or 15, but 5. Then we will come back for the second session. Thank you.
Listen, traveler, it's too late to go back now. The forests have filled your lungs. Rivers run in your heart. You have set the course for the land so green and abound with unspoilt nature that you will never be the same. You have come to Slovenia. To live hand in hand with these natural riches is a deep-rooted gratitude locals feel every day. The respect for nature shows in the way we think, live, and do. Slovenia Green is a unique story and a great lesson in sustainability for the rest of the world. It began with a pledge to preserve the pristine nature for us and for you. we set out on a long, steep path and became active guardians of our natural heritage. Local communities and tourist providers have all come together to build a unique model of sustainability in tourism. Over a decade, we put together a visionary policy that nurtures everyone by the table. Today, we are one of the world's greenest destinations. We encourage you to visit us by train, bike, or on foot. On your way, you will come to understand why we included the right to clean drinking water in our Constitution. We believe in responsible observation of the mysterious wildlife. The inhabitants of our ancient forests can teach us all how important it is to protect our planet. When your step becomes heavy, it is time to rest. We think green accommodation should be as close to stars, birds, and trees as possible. We believe in the green inspiration from one generation to another, from one traveler to another. It comes with a view that overwhelms. To know how to listen to a tree is for us a way of traveling too. You can never cross the same stream, walk the same forest path twice. Our commitment and enthusiasm for sustainable tourism have been contagious. Today we stand united, together with you, dear traveler, under the vision of Green Slovenia.
Hi, I hope that everyone is back because we have to proceed with our conference. We have another video to warm us up. Let's listen to Anei. Anei will tell us a story of a life situation of his peer from Slovenia, as well as Ranja. Anei also recorded his video by himself. So please, video.
Lepo pozdravljeni, sem Anej in povedal bom zgodbo mojega vrstnika, 18-letnega fanta, ki je letos vstopil v srednjo šolo in je na Zvezo prijateljev mladine Slovenije podal prošnjo za štipendijo. Naša družina živi v stari babičini hiši, ki sta oče in mama popravila, dozidala kopalnico in kuhinjo. Ko sta prej vlažno hiško spravila do primerne za bivanje, vsaj ni več nevarna. Sam bomo dokončali. Samo zdaj ni denarja, pa je dobro tako, kot je. Imam še starejšega brata študenta, s katerim so ves čas pomagala. Sam oče zgodaj zbolel in preživel 2 srčna infarkta. Mama je delala v 3 izmenah, skrbela za dom in bolnega moža, ki bo vmes na čakanju, potem pa službo izgubil. Nato je bolezen udarila pri meni. Zaradi vdrtih prsi in reber, ki so pritiskala na srce in pljuča, sem imel vedno več težav. Sedaj čakam že na drugo operacijo, že več kot 18 mesecev. V osnovni šoli sem se trudil po najboljših močeh, a sem bil za marsikaj prikrajšan. Želim si, da bi očetu in mami lahko več pomagal, a ne morem, ker sem vedno bolj bolan. Komaj čakam, da me bodo operirali. Včasih sem lahko stekel za žogo, zdaj pa po stopnicah več ne morem. Mama dela za minimalno plačo, skrbi za vse nas. Vesela, da ima svojo službo. Zelo imam rad. Kljub temu, da živimo bolj ubogo, sem hvaležen, da mi boste spravila do kruha in bom imel svoj poklic. Zelo rad bi bil tehnik mehatronike, saj me to zanima in vem, da je to poklic prihodnosti. Zelo bi bil vesel, če bi dobil štipendijo, saj bi to pomenilo, da bo očetu in mami ostal kakšen evro več ob koncu meseca. Kar se pa zdravja tiče, upam, da bo operacija uspela in bom lahko normalno zaživel.
Thank you, Anei. Well done, Anei. I know that you and your mentor, you are watching us. It was really good, and I am so proud that we have children here like you who care about the well-being of your peers. For your information, dear participants, Anei is also a member of Slovenian Child Parliament. I would like to express at this stage gratitude to 3 Slovenian organizations: PITS, Legal Center for the Protection of Human Rights and Environment from Slovenia, UNICEF Slovenia, and ZPMS, the Association of the Friends of the Youth, for your help with the child participation at the conference. Now let's move with the second working session, in which we would like to explore possibilities on how we can implement the recommendation on the European Child Guarantee. We have 5 panelists with us. The first is Mr. Jari Andersson from European Committee of Regions. The second is Tatjana Katkic-Stanic. She is the Director General at the Ministry of Labor, Pension System, Family and Social Policy from Croatia, and she is also the National Coordinator from Croatia. The third is Mr. Ivan Krastev. He is Deputy Minister of Labor and Social Policy from Bulgaria. The fourth is Stella Grigoras, Phase 3 ECG Program Manager from UNICEF. And the last, Ana Maria Aboy Fernandez, Deputy Director for Benefits and Inclusion Programs from Government of Galicia, Spain. I would again kindly ask all our panelists to stick to the time because we are really behind our schedule. So please, Mr. Jari Andersson, our first speaker, can you share us the position of the European Committee of Regions on the European Child Guarantee, and can you share with us some experience?
Yes, thank you, Madam. I'm very glad I have honored to be here, and I try to be very fast because we are a little bit late on the time schedule. But now under my speech, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to be here today. It is such a pleasure to have the opportunity to participate in this very important exchange of good practices regarding the social inclusion of children indeed. As a headmaster and rapporteur of the European Committee of the Regions opinion of the EU strategy on the rights of the child and the European Child Guarantee, I am particularly attentive to the issues regarding children's rights, equal chances, well-being and social inclusion. The core opinion on the Child Guarantee effectively encourages the efforts of the member states, but also the local and regional authorities to reduce child poverty and improve child rights to access to social services. And perhaps more important, in the context of the catters as today, the opinion stresses the need to define good practices related to the European Child Guarantee implementation to local level. In this perspective, I will therefore use the opportunity that I have today to present some interesting good practices that we collected in the recent core study that was published at the end of this July to support the work of the core of the issue of children's access to basic services and social inclusion. My intention is to present some selected examples from the local level that I hope will illustrate the important role that regions and municipalities play in supporting children's social inclusion, how it can be done in very wide range of manners. I will also highlight some of the great challenges that they actually face in doing so and how we could face collectively them. First, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start with childcare. To give our children the best start in life, childcare must become an essential part of our social infrastructure, and we must ensure that vulnerable children can access childcare too. The Caravellers that is supported by the Brabant Wallon province in Belgium, together with several local health and social agencies, offers individual inclusion and support services to children from 0 to 3 years old with disabilities. The project offers tailored support to each child and is aimed at enhancing their creativity, sensory enjoyment, and independence. With a team of interdisciplinary professionals, the project also aims at promoting and making possible the inclusion of children with disabilities in early childhood care, but also in leisure activities. For instance, the project supports traditional childcare facilities and develop settings for an inclusive reception of children with special needs and assists them in the establishment of the inclusive educational project from them. So far, the project has supported thousands of children. Almost 1,000 schools teachers have been trained to adapt their educational work to children with disabilities. Another very important aspect for which local authorities play an important role, and that is decisive for the social inclusion of children, is the issue of housing. Many specialists consider that the regard of children's well-being, as we see in the video, the housing first policy should apply, and it seems indeed obvious that before considering any additional action or policy, it is necessary to ensure that all children have access to security and warmth of home. On this respect, a two-year pilot project named Rapid Rehousing was launched in a municipality of Brno in the Czech Republic. With the support of local NGOs, the project aimed at quickly providing the stable home solution to disadvantaged families with children. Through this local project, 50 apartments were made available to host homeless families that were previously living in private hostels, shelters, and other types of temporary housing. The municipality of Brno, and as the owner of apartments located in different city districts, made these apartments available at a reasonable rent. Support services were provided as well, such as information about the educational offering of schools and kindergartens. Consultancy with physicians and specialists, liaison with staff in charge of child protection. The families that benefited from the project had hugely positive impact of children well-being, behavior, educational attainment, security, as well as the employment of parents. This specific project highlights the amazing role that local and regional authorities can have on the social inclusion of children in the wider community through well-designed housing first policies. The third and the last example I would like to provide is from my home country, Finland. In the city of Espoo, and concern of the important issues of prevention of social exclusion, as well as access to culture and leisure activities for children, which are crucial for their emotional and intellectual development. In August 2019, the Espoo City Council approved an action program to reduce poverty among families with children. The program aims to support disadvantaged Espoo families through an approach that addresses the needs of all family members, integrating the measures and address aspects related to the risk of poverty and social exclusion, as well as poverty itself, by providing targeted services and income support to single-parent families, families with disabled parents, by promoting social mobility and cooperation between schools and home. The goal is to provide every child and young person with equal rights, opportunities, and resources to be involved in society. Risks associated with poverty are addressed by measures relating to education, employment, and homelessness, among the other things. The project also supports children's participation in cultural and civic activities, hobbies and sport to which they have access freely, by building cooperation with sport and centers. I will be now very brief. I know that time is running so out. I will only highlight a few points, Madam Speaker. The first is that as local and regional authorities, we sometimes lack of sufficient data of knowledge of the extent of child vulnerability and poverty phenomena in our territories of competence. Vulnerability and child poverty are often hidden phenomena until they are relieved by occurrence of abuses of social exclusion behaviors. Information is a crucial in condition to properly design and then implement effective and tailored policies and actions at any administrative level. Another important difficulty is outreach. Sometimes even community-based strategies may have difficulties in reaching out to the children in need and the municipal level. It is therefore important to establish as much networks as possible and even to support door-to-door services. Of course, an important tool is the internet, but even there, it is crucial to make sure that web pages aimed to providing crucial information on social integration that affect families and children are sufficiently accessible to present in clear manners and the services provided from them at the municipal level. Finally, and the most important challenge, the initiatives implemented to tackle child poverty and exclusion at the municipal level supporting. Disadvantaged children need appropriate funding and budget sustainability. Local funding capacity varies over time, present huge level of territorial inequality, and is more influenced by emergency situations such as COVID-19 pandemic. EU structural funds and national funds are a crucial source of supporting children in need at the local level. In many cases, EU funds contribute for a decisive part in sustaining the actions at municipal level for the social inclusion of children. It is therefore of utmost importance in increase the amount and accessibility to these funds to tackling child poverty as much as it is possible. Madam, thank you very much.
Kiitos. Thank you, Mr. Andersen, for your contribution, and in which you emphasized the challenges and also the what is good on the local level.
Yeah.
So now we move to our next speaker, Director General Katkic Stanic, who will present a model of new services and best practices for children and families, which they are currently developing in Croatia within the phase 3 of the UNICEF pilot project in the area of Međimurje. So please, Ms. Katkic Stanic, you can start now. Thank you. We can see you and we can hear you.
Can you? Sorry, I have some technical. Can you see that presentation?
No, we cannot see anything. Now you are switched off. Also your camera, and we don't see the presentation.
I will start talking.
Okay, maybe you can start, and we can see if we can share your PowerPoint presentation. Would that be okay by you?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I will ask my colleagues to put on the presentation, and in the meantime, please, you can start with your interesting best practice from our neighborhood.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and I would like to congratulate our neighbors for a very interesting conference. As a part of the European Child Guarantee Program, the Ministry of Labour, Pension System, Family and Social Policy has started the process of drafting a national implementation document with specific goals aimed at preventing poverty and social exclusion in the most vulnerable groups of children and families in Croatia. Our goal is through Child Guarantee to develop free access to quality services available to every child without hidden costs. By 2030, we want to develop a regionally harmonized services networks for the children in Croatia and ensure the accessibility of services and sustainability of infrastructure investments. For Croatia, key challenges are to improve intersectoral cooperation, develop a monitoring and evaluation system, and remove international barriers to implementation. For that, we need to ensure integrate approaches and services because the responsibility for the situation of children growing up in poverty goes beyond the social welfare system. We are actually in the middle. Financially and spatially available quality services with a package of basic services available to every child, and network services and free access with removed hidden cost. And also planning, evaluation, revision of services and interventions based on child-sensitive data collection and monitoring systems. Croatia defines these groups of children who are in risk, and for Croatia, that is children growing up in single-parent families or families with free and up children, children growing up in low labor intensity households, older children from 12 to up, children and Roma national majority, children beneficiaries of guaranteed minimum income, which is generally beneficiaries in social welfare system, children in less developed part of Croatia, especially rural areas, children with disabilities, migrant children, asylum seekers, unaccompanied children, holders of international protection, and children in alternative care. Croatia was given the opportunity to implement the pilot project together with the UNICEF to develop a model of new services and best practices for children and their families. The aim of the project is access to integrate multidisciplinary, adequately funded community services. It is implemented in the area of Međimurje County, a region with the highest rate of beneficiaries of guaranteed minimum income and loss access to the child protection and family support services. It is very interesting that in the same time, Međimurje country is one of the richest countries in Croatia. The program focused on three components: access to the child protection services and family support, access to the preschool education, and access to early intervention services. Implementation partners in this project are public institutions such as social welfare centers and education faculty. but also large NGOs dedicated to the program objectives in this county. Međimurje County is chosen for the program implementation due to the highest rate of the beneficiaries of guaranteed minimum income, and as I said, as a low access to the child protection and family support services. Also, out of total number of guaranteed minimum beneficiaries, more of 80% are Roma, who make around 5% of total Međimurje County population. 1/3 of entire Roma population in Croatia also living in Međimurje County. That's why it's so specific for us. Overall objective of this project for us is that children from Međimurje County in Croatia have access to integrated, multidisciplinary, adequately resourced community and family-based support services, pre-primary education, and early childhood intervention. Specific objectives are to ensure the most vulnerable group of their parents and caregivers, including Roma, have access to integrated child protection and family support services that enable prevention, early identification, referral, and provision of services in accordance with the best interest of the child, thus prevent placement in institutional care. We will improve that by establishing 5 community resource centers, places for providing integrated community and family-based services in isolated rural areas, by strengthening the capacities of professionals of intersectoral cooperation, by developing and piloting indicative parenting supporting program adopted for the Roma families, parents, and children. We already start with the program Growing Up Together Plus for Roma parents, by improving and adjusting working methods and case management in the field of child protection, including Roma language lessons for the child protection professionals to a better communication, by technical support in developing social services network in Međimurje country, and by a program for adolescents and young empowerment. We will change that will improve the positive changes in that local communities. Also, second specific objectives is to enable access to quality pre-preliminary education for all vulnerable children, including Roma, children with disabilities, children living in precarious family situation, to prevent social exclusion and early school dropout. Also, we will improve that by establishing play hubs, places for informal play and structured learning activities for most vulnerable groups of children, for strengthening the capacities of preschool teachers and other preschool experts, with practical part of preschool students' education, and also with improved costing methodology for municipalities to better calculate the kindergarten price in development in comparison with Institute for Economics. And the third specific objectives is to improve access of young children with developmental delay, disability, or at risk of developmental delay, and their families to integrate and coordinate early childhood intervention services that timely and adequately address their developmental needs. And also, we will improve that by analysis of early childhood intervention needs and services, by establish working group for early childhood intervention in Međimurje County, and also by pilot a model of early childhood intervention services, and also strengthening the capacities of health professionals for early childhood intervention in Međimurje County. Croatia national framework is based on multi-annual financial framework from 2021 to 2027. Croatia have 99 million euros for purpose of preventing child poverty from program ESF Plus funds. And also for us is ex ante condition is national plan for combating poverty and social exclusion for period from 2021 to 2027. And in that national plan, we have special goal aimed at preventing and reducing child poverty and social exclusion has been proposed. And also we have a national plan for development of social services for the period of 2021 to 2027, and national plan for equalization of opportunities for persons with disability from the same period, and another national plans in the field of education and health, which is also very important for us when we're talking about integrated approach. For the end, we already established intersectoral working group for developing national plan for the child guarantee. We are in the process of deep dive analysis to inform the national plan and make it evidence-based. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Katkic-Stanic. And now we move to Bulgaria. Mr. Ivan Krastev, Deputy Minister, can you share with us, please, about information about your pilot project that you are carrying out in 3 pilot districts, Burgas, Sliven, and Stara Zagora?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning from Sofia. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I would like to express how proud the Bulgarian government is to be a part of the EU pilot project on implementation of the child guarantee. It is our most sincere commitment to make this project a success because we are committed to support our children in need with everything possible, everything which is in the availability of the state and in particular in the Ministry of Labour and Social Policy to achieve the goals that have been set not only on European but also on national and, as you will see from my presentation, on regional and local level. I would like, before I begin my presentation, to express our sincere gratitude to the support we received from the European Commission and from our partners from UNICEF. It was most invaluable until now, and I hope that our joint efforts, supplemented by the efforts of the civil society and the local authorities, will lead to achieving really a substantial and noticeable change in the quality of life of those children and families that we will support. Now I will proceed with my presentation. Just give me a sec to share the screen. So, dear colleagues, as you may see, we've been chosen to be one of the pilot project's member states. So we have significant goals to pursue. First of all, the child poverty reduction, which currently is one of the highest in the EU at 28.3. We are seeking also to eliminate and prevent social exclusion, which is higher among children than among the general populace of Bulgaria. We would invest heavily in achieving quality education and prevention of school dropouts, which is also one of the main goals of our national reform program. We will also invest in access to main services and quality healthcare, and of course we will target special attention to children with disabilities and children in precarious situations, especially those coming from vulnerable backgrounds such as the Roma community, such as other vulnerable, marginalized communities throughout the country. Our key priority within this framework is to promote children's welfare, prevent and reduce child poverty and social exclusion. How we will achieve that? We have identified so far two especially vulnerable target groups. First of all, these are children with disabilities in the age from 0 to 7 and their families. This will be done in the pilot regions with the support of local NGOs and, of course, our partners from UNICEF. And the second major group, of course, are the children living in precarious situations, in particular the Roma children and their families. What are the expected results from the pilot project in Bulgaria? We aim to provide direct support to more than 6,400 children, including 740 children with disabilities. In this framework, we will also support 6,900 parents or caregivers, depending on the situation of the child. And of course, we will not leave behind the professionals across the sectors in the activities we envisage to include no less than 600 professionals. Having in mind that the situation in the target regions and especially the vulnerability of certain groups, it is my belief, and also it's the belief of my colleagues here, that we will be able to cover more ambitious targets than these which are already set in the project proposal, in the project vision. What is the main objective? As you may see from the slide, it is of course to improve the living conditions and increase access and use of integrated services for children with disabilities and children in precarious family situations in the 3 pilot districts. These pilot districts are located in east southern Bulgaria and include the regions of Burgas, Sliven, and Stara Zagora. Being a native of Stara Zagora myself, I'm really committed to making this project a success. And knowing that there are people on the ground who are working constantly, even without the explicit support of the Commission, UNICEF, and the national authorities on this case, I believe that we have all the national prerequisite to make this an example of success. There are 4 main components in our project. First of all, these are the home visiting services for parents of children from 0 to 3 years. In fact, Bulgaria has a quite good tradition in providing home visiting services for the elderly and for people with disabilities, but yet we are just starting to develop such kind of home visiting services, or as we call it in Bulgarian, patronage, for the children in a vulnerable position. This is very important for the early childhood development, as it is the second main component, early childhood intervention services. We believe that timely access to quality services in this very fragile age of the children will be invaluable support for them growing up healthy and having all the necessary conditions to further develop within the educational system and, of course, in life itself. The 4th main components are services for inclusive preschool education, which is, of course, the next step in the life cycle of each and every child. And last but not least, the 4th component is prevention and support services, which will be provided both to children and families. And we hope that those negative social phenomena that we have identified as a threat to a child's normal development, we know which they are, and we will address them properly within the project. As you may see from the slide, we have quite some important national partners on national level. These include all the line ministries, including ours, Ministry of Labour and Social Policy, Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education and Science, the government itself, which in Bulgarian is called Council of Ministers, of course, the relevant agencies, the Agency for Child Protection, the Social Assistance Agency, the National Association of municipalities in Bulgaria, the National Network for Children, which is the main umbrella NGO organization working on these issues in Bulgaria. We have also taken on board district administrations, municipalities, service providers, local and national NGOs, the academia, and of course we would pretty much like to involve more the media and of course the children and young people, not only those in vulnerable situations, but also those who are of the same age and can contribute to provide an inclusive environment for the children and families we aim to support. You may see the map. I will not elaborate further because we have some time constraints, but I will be ready to answer some questions if there are any. This is the map of the services that will be established in the 3 pilot regions. What is the specifics behind each and every component? First of all, as you see in the first component, we will support centers for maternal and child health for the provision of home visits by qualified nurses in families with children up to 3 years of age and pregnant women with a special focus on vulnerable families. This will include counseling and information individualized for each and every need, support for responsive caregiving and promotion of children's development. The second one will be supported also with a new scheme under the ESF Plus Fund, which will aim to provide all the necessary food and nourishment for children up to 3 years of age immediately after their birth for vulnerable families, of course. We will also stress on monitoring child development and screening for any kind of development difficulties that can be affiliated in this case. We will also support access to early childhood intervention services, as I've already mentioned, but we will take specific care in this early age to monitoring the healthcare status and proper nutrition for the children, because it's very important, as we all know. The geographic coverage will be only one of the districts live in. The second component will focus on development of existing early childhood development services. We will increase the capacity to identify and support more children where needed. We will stress on training and supervision for social services staff. We will try to provide outreach services which are on certain occasions lacking or not in sufficient volume for in the child natural environment. And of course, we will focus to support families and keep children and families together, which we know it's really the main goal behind supporting families in each and every occasion. We will also try to provide advanced screening to detect development difficulties within the primary healthcare system. And we will also try to integrate this in the early childhood intervention services network, which we will create under this project. Last but not least, there is also the support for transition to inclusive nurseries and kindergartens. This is a very important step, and I believe that the nurseries are a main prerequisite for the children at this early stage to be able to perform really good and to feel not only to be integrated through specific measures, but for themselves to feel integrated in the educational system. The geographic coverage for this measure will include 2 of the districts, Sliven and Stara Zagora, and this will cover 3 municipalities, Kirpa, Sliven and Stara Zagora. The next one, as you may see, I've been also myself involved in education on previous occasions, and I believe that this is a hugely important component for the future development of the children, and that's the preschool education services. We're talking about the need of inclusive educational environment, and we will support where these educational facilities where it's already established, and try to implement it and try to introduce it in other kindergartens as much as possible for the case to provide the children with the opportunity to be really included in this early stage of their educational attainment. As you may see, this will include multimodal training program on inclusive education for teachers and non-teaching staff in kindergartens. We'll also provide additional qualification, individual and group supervisions for teachers and specialists. We will strengthen the capacities of regional centers to conduct functional needs assessment of children with disabilities. We will provide methodological support to kindergartens and provide supervisions on individual cases. We have already this network. We have this network already established, and we will support it further, including with taking on board NGOs and their staff in order to be more efficient on the ground. We will improve the interaction and cooperation between kindergartens and the existing social and health services, which is an area where we will need to work more in this case. The fourth component is child and family-centered preventive and support services. We will, of course, aim at strengthening the capacity of existing services. We will train multidisciplinary teams. We will reach out by providing information, counseling, referral to services where needed, interventions, individual or group interventions where needed, and of course, the access to high quality and easily accessible services for these people in need. Well, one specific issue here is the program for prevention of early marriage, family planning and prevention of family separation, which is unfortunately a very widespread negative phenomenon across the vulnerable and marginalized groups in our country, especially in those three regions. Last but not least, we will strengthen the capacity of the child protection departments, which are part of our social assistance agency. And this is the main governmental institution which is working on the ground on these type of issues. This is our coordination and monitoring mechanism. As you see, there are 3 levels of coordination on national level, which is chaired by our ministry and my colleague Nadia Klesurska, who is also Deputy Minister of Labor and unfortunately is not available today to take part in this conference. She's the national coordinator for the child guarantee. On regional level, we have another level of coordination, which is chaired by the district governors. And on municipal level, we have the very important role of the municipalities, which are the owners mainly of social services on the ground, and the involvement of mayors and their staff in this case is really important. I will not read the tasks of the monitoring committee. You can see it by yourself. This is the structure of our national plan. It includes in-depth analysis. It also has an interinstitutional working group which was involved in the development of the national plan, and it will also be involved in its implementation by including all the stakeholders, which we work on 3 different levels, as you may see in this case. What we may say also about the child participation. As you see from the picture on this slide, they say the little ones say we have a voice and we really cherish and respect their voice. So what they want is access to quality health care in the first place, education, child care, decent housing. Decent housing is especially important for the marginalized communities in our country. And last but not least, something which is really shameful to talk about in the 21st century, but there are children in Europe nowadays who lack adequate nutrition. We are here to provide them and to support them, and hopefully after implementing the child guarantee on EU level, we won't face another hungry child in the EU and in Bulgaria in particular. The financial support for the implementation of the priorities, that is my own personal responsibility within the ministry. So once again, significant gratitude to the EU Commission services and to Commissioner Smith himself for supporting Bulgaria in developing its programs for the next, for the current actually programming period. As you may see, more than 5% of ESF plus financing, which is more than 117 million euro, will be allocated towards implementing the child guarantee in Bulgaria. And this amount is spread between the education program and the human resources development program, which is managed by our ministry, in a ratio which is almost 75% for the Ministry of Education and 25% for social services coming from the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy. These schemes will be supplemented by support from the national budget, and this support is growing by the year since the current government of Bulgaria managed to introduce certain reforms in the social assistance and social benefit system, which will allow for the next 2 years the number of families and vulnerable families which receive social benefits to almost double in the context of supporting income for most vulnerable members of society. In the support services, as you may see, I've already said it, but we will provide about 35 million euro for social services EU financing and 101 million. I believe there will be more actually in the implementation phase to support quality education, preschool and early childhood development within the context of the child guarantee. And that was my presentation. I would like to really thank you for your attention, and of course remain available for your questions if there are any. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. As we are very late for our schedule, I would give now a word to Stella Grigoras from UNICEF, and I would really kindly ask our two last speakers to respect the time limits.
Okay, so I'm trying to share my presentation, and I can't see it somehow. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know what happens. Okay, it doesn't show. That's interesting. So I will start my presentation, and hopefully I can then share my presentation later. So basically, thank you very much for the opportunity that you gave us, Ruzhika, and the organizers to present the work that is happening under the child guarantee, and especially in the area that we believe is very important for the pilot countries that have been already presenting their programs, but also for many other countries in the European Union, because we believe that children in alternative care are one of the most vulnerable group of children that need special attention, especially in the framework of the child guarantee, because these children are living with trauma, and these children may also be subject to additional trauma while being placed in, especially in institutional care. So my presentation is going to have two parts. One part is going to really focus on the data element of the child care reform in Europe, and showing the importance of that. And also the second part is going to show a few examples from the pilot countries where we implement specific deinstitutionalization and child care reform actions. So in the past, we have seen a lot of commitment on behalf of EU, on behalf of the member states for child care reform processes, a lot of investment into this area. But what we also have seen that there is a lack of data that, relevant indicators to measure the progress that, specific countries are achieving in child care reform, but also, there is a lack of comparable, let's say, statistics and quality data at the moment. And we all know that wide, having comparable, data across Europe is important, because it will allow this cross-country learning, but also it will allow to really understand how different countries support children that are in need of care, and also how other sectors like social welfare, education, and healthcare are also contributing into the area of the prevention in order to prevent separation, unnecessary separation of children from family care. And in order to fill this gap, UNICEF and Eurochild back in 2020, we started, if you can go back to the first slide, the previous slides, yes, thank you very much. We started a project to really look into the data systems that are available in all of the member states, but also to really explore opportunities of how, to develop relevant indicators that can be used by countries, but also at the EU level. So, and of course, due to this process of investigation, let's say, we collected some data that I want to present, few of the data just to steer your interest of the, and identify, these children as priority in your National Action Plan for Child Guarantee. Of course, data has some limitation due to the fact that different countries have different definitions, different concepts that they are using for alternative care of children. So, and of course, you can see here that, it's still a priority. The data that we gathered, it shows that we have over 300,000 children in residential care across EU. And the number can be even higher. As I said, that there are some limits of some errors of inclusion and exclusion. And we have over 760,000 children that are placed in alternative care. Next one, please. Next slide, if you can move to the next slide. So what we have also identified that member states do collect data that can really, feed into a common set of indicators that can be used by all of the countries and the EU. So, of course, one of the indicator is about the percentage of children that are in residential care. Back to the slide, children that are in the residential care, of the total number of children that are in alternative care at a specific point in time, but also 3 indicators that are looking at the rates of children in alternative care overall, in residential care, and in family-based care at a specific point in time per 100,000 population. So next slide, please. So I will go very quickly through different indicators. So you can see that the percentage of children in alternative care in EU, this proportion of children in residential care compared to those in family-based care can be a very useful indicator to show the progress that different countries are achieving in providing high-quality family-based care. You can see that more than 55% of children are in family-based care, but we still have about 41 children that are in residential care in the EU. So we still have a lot of work to do in order to ensure the right of every child to be cared for in family-based care. So next one, please. So here you can see, the same indicator for each of the countries plus UK. So UK is also part of this exercise. Of course, you can see on this slide that there are a few countries that are doing very well. Very small number of children in residential care. At the same time, we have few countries that have their childcare system are quite, reliant on residential care for children. So, and the vast majority of them are somewhere in the middle. So we have the vast majority of the children that have less than 50% of children that are in care in residential care overall. Next one, please. So next 2 slides, so this one and the next one, so also shows these 3 indicators that I mentioned before. And you can see, again, it's a very good way to compare between the countries on the situation of children in care. Again, you see that, the situation is very various between the member states. We have few countries that have the lowest number of children in residential care, and we have also few countries that have an overall rate of children in care which is also very low, which is good. But for many countries, this is unfinished business, and we need to continue with the reforms in the child care and the institutionalization. Next one, please. So what can be done and what we need to do, all of us, including the governments of all of the member states? Of course, the role of the family, everyone has mentioned today, is very important. Family has functions that are crucial for the development of the child, but also in the long run, crucial for social development of the society, yes, of the social capital of the society. So that's why it's very clear that the policymakers should develop policies that, first of all, address drivers of institutionalization. We really need to understand what's happening and why children end up in care. But also we need policies that strengthen families, that prioritize family reintegration in the whole process of care, let's say, journey of any child, that we develop a comprehensive system of services from prevention to response, and that are really based on the best interest of the child, and that are really centered around the family, and that the governments are progressively transforming the child care system and progressively eliminating the role of the residential institutions in the care for children. And of course, a cross-government approach, a coordinated approach is really key. And we've talked about that today for many times already. So, but I think that what is important for all of us to be frank and say that a very well coherent childcare system, should always aim to ensure family care for all children. We cannot say that some of them will be, let's say, in institutions. Yeah, we need to aim for all children to be in the family care because this is the best environment for all of the children. And we need to be very frank and say that residential care is not a suitable permanent placement for children. So residential care can be part of the continuum, but it has to be for a very small proportion of children for very short time and very specialized. And of course, we need also to say that children under a certain age, young children, should never be placed in any forms of care. Next one, please. So what UNICEF does, and we've heard already from my colleagues today, so I think we've had already very rich presentation from my colleagues, but in terms of the child care, we really try to work in 6 main elements of the child care system. And of course, we produce generation, and of course, colleagues have mentioned, for the decision making. We develop policies, legislation, and regulation, but also we strengthen statutory structures and functions and capacities to manage this transition from institutional to family-based care. And of course, we work with local authorities as well on the ground to develop this continuum of services from prevention to response. And we also look into, fiscal management of the system and identify opportunities for the human resources and financial resources to be reallocated from the closing down institutions to new, innovative, but also cost-effective solutions for children. And of course, we work with civil society. I said that you've heard today that we are working on the social norms because that's strong yet in many of the societies, unfortunately, but also we work on community mobilization and we work on participation of children. Next one, please. So just to show very briefly, these are the 4 countries, the pilot countries, and you can see that few countries like Greece has still a very strong reliance on residential care, while in Bulgaria, Croatia, the family-based care is predominant. Italy is almost 50-50. But if you look at the rate of children in alternative care in these 4 member states, you see that Bulgaria has a high rate, let's say, or higher rate of children in alternative care overall, followed by Croatia, which may indicate that these 2 countries, go back please, these 2 countries, maybe they need more prevention to strengthen the prevention part of the system. While Greece and Italy, they have lower rates of children in care overall, but still the reliance of residential care is quite strong, so they may need to look at diversifying and strengthening the alternative care, family-based alternative care for children. Next one, please. So now I will present a few examples, if you allow me to go to the next slide. So Bulgaria and Croatia, you've heard about them. So you've seen the real focus on prevention. But one of the elements that I would like really to mention, maybe to re-emphasize it once again, is the integrated family support services that are really key, especially, to prevent child abandonment and separation and placements in alternative care, especially in the most vulnerable communities that our colleagues have talked about. And in both of these countries, what we do, we provide this outreach services, multidisciplinary teams that outreach to those families and communities, and they screen the families for different social risks, including the risk for separation and abandonment, but also for development delays in young children. And what they do, they link those vulnerable groups that cannot come easily into mainstream social services or support services to these services. So they link them to social support services, to child protection services if there is a risk, but also to early childhood education and care and early childhood intervention. And we talk a lot about the home visitation, so I will not stop here. So the next country is, I think, Italy. So from Italy, what we do is really the focus is on diversified forms of family and community-based care. So what we do, we really look into a number of models of services that we try to further develop, to test, and also to analyze and incorporate into the existing national policy. Go back, please. National policy and legislation. So in Italy, we really focus on diversified and the specialized foster care model. We develop also, you're showing Greece, but I'm still talking about Italy. So innovative community-based housing arrangements. So we're talking about supervised independent living and social housing that for children that are in care, or for children who are being prepared or are leaving a child care system. What is very important about Italy is a peer support model for vulnerable families that is integrated in the existing family support services that they have almost everywhere, and especially with the focus on families that are caring for children with disabilities. So we're developing this, peer support in order to prevent burnout, to prevent, abandonment and institutionalization of these children. And also an integrated innovative skill development package where, that's a package that allows children to transition from childhood to adulthood, from education to work. Next one, please. And the last slide, and the last country is Greece. So in Greece, the focus is really on transformation of residential care. We've seen that the system is quite heavily reliant on residential care, and the government identified this as a priority. And for Greece, we work in two levels. So we work on the policy framework, and so we've supported the development of the DI plan, especially with the focus for children. We're working with the data systems for alternative care, register for foster care, and for adoptive families, and for children that are in care. And of course, we are conducting now a nationwide foster care campaign because we need foster carers in order to be able to deinstitutionalize children that are in residential care. At the same time, at the local level, we work in one region, in Attica region, and we concentrate our work around 5 residential institutions, including 1 private institution. And we're assessing the children and families and the institution themselves, and we're developing the plan for transformation of these residential institutions into something else useful, family-based care services, family support services on the ground. And in doing so, of course, we build the system. We try to build a system in the Attica region that would prevent children from, being placed in institutional care, but also will reintegrate children and will support family-based care for children. So we work on gatekeeping. We're putting in place family support and reintegration services, which is the must to begin with the deinstitutionalization. Of course, we work also on supervised independent living, starting to prepare young people to live care. And what we do a lot, we work with the universal services because, as I said earlier, they are key in preventing separation. They are key for reintegration of children back to their families and to their communities. So we strengthen inclusive education. We work with healthcare, but also with social protection to be able to provide more support to children and families. And we have a very strong skill building and labor market integration component as well as in Italy. So I will stop here. It was very quick, and thank you very much for helping me with the presentation. It worked at the beginning, but it didn't work when the time came. So I'm very happy to stay and receive any questions that you may have about this very important topic. Thank you very much, Ružika.
Thank you, Stella, for your presentation. And the institutionalization is really a challenge, even the word itself. Now I would like to invite our last speaker on the second working session. She will speak about the eviction programs in Galicia. So please, Ms. Aboy Fernandez, you have a word.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Thank you very much for the invitation in advance. I will try to share with you the presentation. Let's see if it works. Now I think you are seeing properly the presentation. Let's see. Okay. So I will talk about a program that we launched 8 years ago in order to support people at risk of eviction. This is not a specific program for children, but we consider that the positive effects of the program are especially important for them, as housing is essential, as the first speaker had remarked. So before speaking about the program, just a few words as an introduction. The outbreak of the economic crisis in Spain causes a progressive increase on eviction cases. So that leads an important number of families to a risk of social exclusion. The Spanish government take some measures to limit the consequences of this problem. But besides the regional Galician government in 2013 see that was necessary complementary measures. So we have two main instruments to raise against the eviction. A collaboration agreement among the government body of the judiciary who help us to act coordinated between court and social services of the municipalities of the regional government. And the main one is the support program for people at risk of eviction. What is this program? It's mainly a coordination framework of services for people at risk of eviction of their homes. The main goal is to prevent the eviction situation, to avoid it, but it's not possible. We provide personal and appropriate solution for everyone with the aim of minimize the effects of social exclusion and improving their family lives and economic and social situation. The program's beneficiaries are families and individuals in risk of eviction for mortgage and payment, especially at the beginning of the program from 2013 until 2017. But at this moment, the more important number of eviction are for rental and payment. In both cases, the house who is in risk of eviction should be the only one of the family, and it should be located in Galicia. In order of the program, is an integral program who provides legal and financial advisory services, social care, psychological support, and also, if it's necessary, support to find an alternative home and help with the complementary benefits from the regional government, like help for paying rents or achieving a social house. Also, when it's a short time until the eviction date, we apply for suspension of the eviction to the court, and this is especially important to have the time to articulate social protection measures. The program at the beginning starts with a central office here in the capital of Galicia, Santiago de Compostela, but in 2017, we see that the number of cases, especially with the rental cases, was incremented. So with the help of the financial of the EU, FSE, sorry for, we have 6 more offices. So now we have 7 offices working in all Galician cities. And we have a staff of 19 workers, 2 psychologists, 7 social workers, and 7 legal advisors, 1 in each office, a financial advisor, and 2 administrative staff helping. and the salary of this staff is around 750,000 euros per year. From the beginning in 2013, we have handled a number of 2,600 cases, more or less. As you see, the 70% are rental cases. This is that for the 2017 until now. You see that the evictions, to non-payment of rent are more important. And the primary target groups we have is families with minor children, families with jobless members, women who suffered gender violence in the last year, and elderly people or families caring dependents. The family with children represents a little more than the third of the total handled cases. And if we see the percentage of the families with minors who needs suspension for the evictions, we have 51%. So, of the total number of families with minors care in the program, a total of 21% need the services of the minors protection services. But a great achievement of the program, we think, is that since the beginning of the program, no child has required residential alternatives away from his or her family, just as consequences of an eviction procedure. So we think that for children is especially important to keep their house and to have this support from the program. Thank you very much for the attention. I leave here the contact of our mail in order to answer the questions you can have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Aboy Fernandez, and I really appreciate that you took some time consideration. We are we have to change our program a bit because many participants have other responsibilities at 1 o'clock. So I have to inform you that we will skip today's discussion, and now we will move to the closing part. We would like to hear more. What are the future plans? Because the continuity is crucial to implement the child guarantee. So I would first apologize Minister Taquet from France, and I would like to give him the floor to tell us more about the plans of the incoming French presidency. So please, Minister Taquet, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, perfect. I see that you can see me also well. Good morning to all of you, the organizing team, dear Janice, dear Katarina, dear Afshan. Thank you very much for offering me the opportunity to participating in this closing session. I deeply regret and apologize for not having been able to attend the whole event, but I am sure that thanks to our Slovenian friends, the discussions were rich and were inspiring also, and that all those who join in will end the day with a deep feeling of confidence, I hope, I'm sure, when it comes to the European Union's capacity to reach its objectives in regard to the European Child Guarantee. I take this opportunity to once again thank our Portuguese colleague, Ms. Ana Mendes Godinho, who 6 months ago, remember, did everything in her power and succeeded in pushing the adoption of the recommendation on the ECG through the Council. Of course, none of this would have happened had the Commission not made the fight against child poverty and social exclusion one of its top priorities. In doing so, the Commission, and especially Commissioner Nicholas Schmit, whom I thank for this, reminded everyone that things had been done, great things, but that more had to be done to ensure that every European children can grow up in a safe and nurturing environment. I say this as the Child Guarantee is, of course, one of the 6 pillars on which stands the recently unveiled EU strategy on the rights of the child. For a long time, many people have been expecting a strong European action on these matters, and I am glad to see that since then we all have collectively moved forward and embraced what could be considered as a new domain. It is a strong message that each state now has to carry on its own, in particular through the national action plans we are all working on. I think we all sensed this feeling of emergency. We can no longer allow 1 out of 5 European children to live at risk of poverty or social exclusion. To address this challenge that the COVID crisis certainly exacerbated, we need to act, and we need to act now. We need to act because these inequalities that expose some and not others to specific risks have a deep impact on children's lives, but also, we know it, on the lives of the adults that they will become. We also need to act because these inequalities often repeat themselves from a generation to a generation to a generation to a generation. 6 generations in France to get out of poverty. And we know, thanks to the work of people like James Ekman, that the highest rate of return in early childhood development comes from investing as early as possible. By promoting an effective access to a wide variety of essential services, the ECG aims at ensuring a real equality of chances among all children from the very first day. The ECG also brings a necessary focus on the specific difficulties that some children are facing and on the importance of addressing the needs linked to these difficulties. As you may well know, these issues are already at the center of some major French policies, and I need not bother you with the list of measures taken these last few days to ensure that we meet the objectives we now share through the ECG to fight against child poverty. But I would like to shed light on some of the most important ones to my eyes, and some that were designed to support very specific categories of French children. There is, of course, what we are doing around the first 1,000 days of the life of the child. It is during that period of time, you know it, crucial for his development, that we must concentrate more and more of our resources. Because the sooner you act, the easier it will be to prevent difficulties from arising or worsening. Beyond children themselves, let me say that the more you support parents during those very early times, the more you will allow them to gain confidence and well-being and to be there for their kids. I am also thinking of a bill that we will be examined in a few weeks by the French Parliament, the French Senate, actually, and that should become law before the end of the year. It is specifically dedicated to improving the everyday life of children that are now protected by our institutional care system. It aims not only at sheltering them from any sort of violence, but also at ensuring them a future as bright as possible and an adulthood as rich as possible. What we are trying to say with that bill and with other works that are going on is that being a child in institutional care should not and cannot mean that you will be exposed to higher risks of poverty or social exclusion. This is too often the case still. We are also still working hard on deploying an ambitious policy of free breakfast and meals at an accessible cost in school, because we are convinced that schools play a fundamental part in this fight, of course. We are convinced that both the idea of and the implication of equality need to be experienced more intensively in schools. And I am confident that we will see all of those subjects, and of course many more, in the national action plans that are coming in the coming months. And I am very much looking forward to their unveiling. And as you know, the limit date fixed by the Commission to make those action plans public will be during the French presidency of the European Council. And I can already tell you today that France, the French government, and I in particular, will be very happy to invite you all to an event that we will organize next March 2022, right around the time when those action plans are expected. so that we could share all our ideas and the actions we are taking. And it is not yet the time to say much about this, but France will obviously pursue the efforts engaged by Portugal, by Slovenia, and so many others to make this European Child Guarantee both a reality but a success to our children. So we count very much on the participation of everyone, member states, NGOs, and of course, children themselves, especially children with special needs. I can simply assure you here today that we will not make the economy of the effort needed to keep this subject at the center of the public debate and public agenda. I once again thank you, dear Janice, for this event, for making ECG one of the main subjects of the Slovenian presidency, as you've been doing it for 6 months. And to conclude, see you all very soon in Paris to bring one step further this discussion and this team effort for our children. A very good day to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Takei, and thank you for your invitation. And we could sense your determination about the child guarantee. And now I would like to invite Mrs. Afshan Khan from UNICEF to share with us what are your plans about the future of the European Child Guarantee pilot project. Are you with us, Mrs. Khan? Okay, maybe Mrs. Khan could join us later. Then I would like to invite Mrs. Ivankovic-Knežević, General Director at the European Commission. If you are with us, can you share your plans for the future from the Commission? Oh, I can see you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can see me and hear me as well.
Perfectly.
Okay, great. While we wait for Afshan, I would like to really thank, first of all, Adrian for such a lovely words, and I'm also extremely happy that we will soon see each other in France, and I'm very happy with the way that you are taking the European Child Guarantee forward. Also, I would like to thank, and it was really great to remember the Portuguese presidency and Minister Godinho, because indeed it was very determined presidency to put the closing on the recommendation, and we really succeeded in 2.5 months practically to adopt this important document. But also I would like to thank you, Slovenian presidency, for putting this on the agenda, and if I can say, it's just the right time, because as we have here this morning, we see the strong and really continuous political support for the European Child Guarantee, and also the commitment to deliver. And this is where your conference really comes at the right time and at the right moment. I believe that growing up in poverty is something that is extremely hard to accept in the EU 21st century. And as we just heard from our French colleague, experiencing poverty in childhood has really lifelong and way intergenerational consequences. Therefore, investing in children is one of the highest return investments that we can all make. The European Pillar of Social Rights Action Plan also sets a target that by 2030 there should be at least 5 million less children at risk of poverty and social exclusion. I'm very happy that together with my colleagues in days to come, we will be discussing with your member states, with all member states, on this target, and I'm extremely grateful that to take a part in this exercise, and also to listen and to learn and hear how do you plan to address these 5 million children less. And I hope even more children less, because we know it's 18 million altogether of children in Europe that are at risk of poverty and social exclusion. What is also very much on our agenda is that we all have joint responsibility to act. Today has also shown that engaging a wide range of stakeholders is a must. And as you know, the recommendation is very explicit on the need to involve the various stakeholders in the preparation of the child guarantee action plans. And with only now 4 months until the finalization of the action plans, I see that this is already well underway. Also, reaching out to the stakeholder is not one-off task, and they need to be engaged also in the implementation, monitoring, but also the evaluation stage. Of course, the child guarantee is not the full antidote to the eradication of child poverty, but listening to the discussion today, we have seen how transversal this initiative is. It is not only about the narrow set of services that we need to take into account broader links in order to be successful in our efforts and in order to secure that social inclusion and equal opportunities are there for all children. Among the others, the guarantee links closely with addressing the spatial disparities. As we heard just a while ago, the deinstitutionalization processes, integration of children with a migrant background, inclusion of Roma children, providing support for children with disabilities, providing support also to homeless children, and securing really social inclusive digital transition, and maintaining and promoting public health and housing policies. Also, this requires seamless coordination at the national level, namely between ministries responsible for social affairs, for education and healthcare, but also the others responsible for housing, for example, as well as the efficient cooperation at all governance levels, be it regional and local. At the EU level, the implementation of the child guarantee is well embedded in our action plan on the European Pillar for Social Rights, and is really the key element of the strategy on the rights of the child. I also take it from today's discussion that it's critical to identify who the children in need are in each of the member states. There are indeed diverse challenges, and there is no one size fits all. And understanding our target groups is a key for designing all and delivering the services covered by the European Child Guarantee. At the same time, I was really glad to hear that we need to avoid stigmatization of children and families benefiting from the guarantee. And this is indeed one of the cornerstones of our recommendation. The Commission will do its most to support the child guarantee coordinators. We have already started. We had a first meeting just a few days ago. And this meeting provided to be very instrumental for sharing practices among member states. We also aim to organize a second meeting at the beginning of December in order to advance with the preparation of the national action plans. And at this meeting, we will present in detail the benchmarking framework for childcare and support to children, which was recently agreed at the level of the SPC. And we'll also hear from UNICEF about the results of the deep dive analysis in 7 member states that are participating in the preparatory action. Finally, I would once again like really to thank you, the Slovenian presidency, for putting the child guarantee high on your agenda and for organizing this event. It is really promising to witness that such a high level of commitment around this virtual table. And thank you all. And indeed, let's continue working together to make sure that all children fulfill their potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ivankovic-Knežević. And now we proceed to Mrs. Khan. I can already see you. So please, you have the floor, and please, we would need only 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends. It's a great pleasure for me to represent UNICEF in this very important conference on the European Child Guarantee, organized by the Slovenian presidency. UNICEF is now in the second year of of the Child Guarantee partnership with DG Employment. And we really see this program and project as being instrumental in order to be able to address issues around child poverty. So with the 7 member states, we're very pleased to have the opportunity today to share experiences and lessons learned in this journey. I know that there have been several sessions this morning speaking to those. The fact that we've been able to create national action plans that are impactful, effective, and measurable will be a crucial step to ensure the successful implementation of a European Child Guarantee in each member state. And this will require, and we've seen it today, strong leadership and coordination from governments of all countries. We welcome also the appointments of the national coordinators by almost all member states. I am delighted that they've been joined us here today. And we at UNICEF are happy to see how engaged and committed they are to making the promise of the European Child Guarantee a reality, especially for the most vulnerable children. UNICEF has been supporting national pilots in 7 EU countries. And we are now over a year into our work testing for innovative programs and addressing child poverty and social inclusion. We can already see their potential, especially when it comes to the hardest to reach children. We believe that some of the key factors that will ensure the effectiveness of national action plans are the following: a cross-sectoral coordination, bringing together all relevant ministries, including the ministries in charge of finance, health, education, and statistics, in addition to social welfare and social protection. Vertical coordination with regional and local authorities, as they are often the best place to know how to reach the most vulnerable children. The deployment of high-quality technical knowledge and expertise, coupled with a careful analysis of the available evidence, and ensuring the effective participation of children and families in need, as well as that of other stakeholders and community actors. I'm very pleased to see that some of the videos today featuring the pilot countries included children and young people. It's critically important for us to listen to young people and children's voices. Many of the presentations during the day have shown the wealth of experience that we've already accumulated. And you have heard how UNICEF is working with governments in Bulgaria and Croatia. We are working together to support children with disabilities, to ensure that they have access to education as well as social services. And we're also paying special attention to children from ethnic minorities, particularly the Roma community, to ensure that they have access to the same essential services as other children. There are very promising practices being developed on parenting support and outreach through mobile teams. And we've heard Minister Takei to emphasize how important that is. We're working with national governments and local authorities to support children in residential care in order to transition them towards family and community-based care of children. I would also say we're also working to support children with a migrant background, as well as children from precarious family situations, to ensure that they have more equal access to development services and early childhood services in particular, as well as education and care. As you have heard throughout the day, these are just some of the examples of work that UNICEF is doing with member states as part of this pilot program. And UNICEF will continue to support the 7 pilot countries, as well as sharing best practices, expertise, and knowledge with other European countries. We will be organizing a series of technical thematic webinars for example, on early child development, and our objective is to make sure that the experience and knowledge generated from the pilots reach all those that may benefit from this. This is especially important now as all countries are focusing on the development of national action plans. We recognize that the development of these action plans, while critical, is just the beginning. In UNICEF, we will continue to offer our support and experiences in reaching and providing services for children in need as member states begin to implement these plans. We are also committed to continue to support the European Commission and the presidency of the Council of the European Union, both the Slovenian presidency and the forthcoming French presidency, to ensure that all European countries make full use of what is a unique opportunity to break the cycle of poverty and disadvantage for children in Europe. And as Commissioner Schmidt said, to make all possible efforts so that our children's dreams are about their future, and they will not be filled with anxiety, but instead with hope and optimism. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. And now I would like to give a word to Jana Hainsworth, Secretary General of the Eurochild. And thank you, Jana, for bearing with us today through the whole program. So please, what can we say about the lessons learned?
Thank you very much, Ruzica. And I am very encouraged by all of the interventions today. There is such a high level of political commitment and many good practice examples of how this can be realized in practice. So although I don't have so much time in the wrapping up, I also wanted to reiterate the support that all of you as national coordinators on the Child Guarantee and those working on implementation have the full support of the Eurochild Network and our member organizations. In many countries, we have national coalitions of children's organizations who are ready and willing to support the implementation of the Child Guarantee, but also the EU strategy on the rights of the child. And we are working together with many other stakeholders at EU level through the EU Alliance for Investing in Children, over 20 networks, and working closely with UNICEF. And so we really want to use the momentum of this opportunity to make a difference to the lives of children and young people all over Europe. If I may just reiterate some of the political messages that we've heard first thing and just now from Minister Take, what we need to really focus on is the cost of inaction. So if we do not prioritize investment in children at this crucial moment in time, when the COVID crisis has dramatically impacted the lives of disadvantaged children and young people, we will be facing a much greater crisis going forward. So investing in children is part of the solution to be building more inclusive societies, more resilient economies, more stable democracies. And I think we keep that in mind at the forefront of our political agendas, and that the Child Guarantee is an important momentum, but it's also about making sure that that's a political priority at national level. And we've heard throughout this morning about the importance of supporting and strengthening families who are at disadvantage, because ultimately children will fare best if their families and the communities are supported. So we need to be very careful not to fall into a trap that is sometimes fallen into in the past, but I haven't heard it today, which is great. But there's sometimes a risk that we are looking at saving poor children from bad families. And that's not the case. That we really need to be able to strengthen families, look at the strengths of families and communities, identify ways that they can be strengthened and supported, and then look at how we can support the ecosystem around children. But tackling child poverty is more than looking only at family poverty, and that's why we very much welcome the Child Guarantee, looking at across the section of services and supports in housing, and I very much welcome the intervention from our colleagues in Galicia. Often the solution to enabling children to grow up happy and healthy, confident, is looking at the environment in which children are growing up in. So when we come to the specifics of the Child Guarantee, and as Yuri said in his intervention, It's a good initiative in that it gives very concrete and targeted initiatives, and it is packaged in what we refer to as this enabling framework, which is reinforcing the Investing in Children recommendation of 2013. I think what's very important to take home from today is that we have an extraordinary momentum, and it's important that within those national action plans, there are very ambitious and immediate short-term goals, but thinking about it in a longer-term perspective towards 2030, about how this can trigger broader reforms to invest in children, to promote children's rights in a national context, that it helps a domestic agenda to own the importance of investing in children. I particularly liked the intervention from Daniel Molinuevo and from all of our colleagues in UNICEF, the important lessons learned from the piloting. This isn't so much about the amount of resources. It's about how those resources are managed, how you create a cross-sectoral ownership of the agenda, how we look at making sure those resources are reliable, are long-term, are flexible, and are able to be targeted to the right interventions and create the right incentives for change to happen on the ground. Which leads me to my last point, which is all about accountability and monitoring. And as we've heard, we're monitoring through the at-risk of poverty and social exclusion indicator at the moment, and there are some worrying trends that's yearly presented in his slide. But as we know, that indicator is far from ideal in giving a true picture of the situation of children and young people across Europe. We heard from Urban Bolicer the important work around more complex child well-being indicators. But in the short term, we do believe that it is possible and recommended to include indicators like those presented by Stella Grigoras from UNICEF, looking at tracking and monitoring the deinstitutionalization process. It doesn't give a full picture, but it provides a framework, an entry point for conversations. And it is very critical that this child guarantee helps to progress child protection reforms. And we believe that those indicators can help provide a framework for those conversations to happen. And many, many speakers have referred to the importance of early childhood education and care. There are some benchmarks looking at access or participation in early childhood education and care according to income quintile. As Eurochild, we're working with several others, as Marie-Louise mentioned in her opening, on a campaign looking at first year's first priority and monitoring data across different dimensions of early childhood development, whether that be child or maternal health, early learning, safety and security. And we're actually going to be presenting 9 country profiles tomorrow at our first year's first priority conference. So there are other ways of monitoring, of developing some core indicators that can monitor progress over time across the EU 27. And we'd really like that to be looked at in detail as we go into assessing the national action plans and how we can broaden the ambition of the member states beyond the 5 million, lifting 5 million children out of poverty in 2030, which we're pleased to see many have referred to as not sufficiently ambitious. But there are also a wide range of other areas that we need to monitor closely if we're to bring about a comprehensive approach to lifting children out of poverty, promoting their well-being, and investing in children in the long term. So again, great thank you to the Slovenian presidency, to our Portuguese colleagues for their determination in getting the child guarantee recommendation across the line. And as civil society, we remain ready and willing and very encouraged to work with all of you to make the best and the biggest difference to children and young people across Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jaina. We knew that you are the best person for the wrap-up, and I'm personally also very grateful to you. And I hope that you all heard and you already registered for the tomorrow's Eurochild event. Now, before I give the word to our last speaker, I would only like to say that after his speech, we will end with the UNICEF video, one of the videos that were filmed during the phase 3 of the pilot project. But now, before that, I would like to give the floor to my dear colleague, who is also passionate about the human rights and social inclusion, Mr. Cveto Uršič, who is State Secretary at the Ministry of Labor, Family, Social Affairs and Equal Opportunities of the Republic of Slovenia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ružica, my dear friend. Dear all, our virtual gathering has been coming to its end. First of all, let me sincerely thank you, Arya, Ela, and Bilal, for moderating today's event. A big thanks goes also to Rania and Tanay for sharing their stories, opinions with us. You have done a wonderful job. At the same time, you have shown us what can be achieved if we just believe in our children and help them along their way. I would also like to thank the honorable guests and the distinguished speakers for your valuable contributions, and to all of you, dear participants, joining us at today's conference on ensuring equal chances for every child. As it has been pointed out today, we have come a long way from the initiative on investing in children of 2013 to the Council recommendation on establishing a European Child Guarantee of 2021. But there is still a long way ahead of us all to eradicate child poverty and social exclusion. Reaching the EU 2030 poverty reduction target and the first Sustainable Development Goal is necessity for making our societies inclusive and sustainable. Member states act together when it is most needed. We have shown that in reacting quickly to the challenges posed by the pandemic, we have shown that. And we have shown that by rapidly reaching the agreement on the European Child Guarantee early this year. Now, it is up to the member states to cooperate closely with the relevant stakeholders and to make European Child Guarantee a reality for every child in the Union. It is the time to prepare ambitious national action plans and pave the way for all children to reach their full potential. It is their right. It is their right. And it is our obligation to make it happen. As it has been said, the cycle of intergenerational transfer of poverty and deprivation can most effectively be broken at an early age. Pandemic has taught us that the chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and that the path to recovery is only possible if we start with the most vulnerable among us. This is even more relevant in the context of demographic challenges, digital and green transitions. No child should be left behind, not now and not in the future. We need to create more inclusive, resilient and sustainable societies. The only way to do so is by investing in people's well-being from the beginning of one's lifespan, in particular in well-being of children in need. Today, it has been shown that we have knowledge, we have tools and instruments, and we have strong commitment of relevant stakeholders to fight child poverty and social exclusion. It is time to put our words into actions and to enable every child to have equal chances for living full, creative and productive life. So, once more, many thanks to all of you for your contributions. And at the end of the day, of course, I need to say many, many thanks to my dear friend Ružica for moderating this event. Thank you.
Thinking about children living in poverty and facing discrimination makes me angry because we live in a world with so many resources and we are more than capable enough to grant every child a happy and safe life, but instead a great majority of people doesn't even want to think about it.
Ίσον αισθάνομαι πολύ άσχημα και πολύ λυπημένη, γιατί σκέφτομαι ότι αυτό το παιδί θα μπορούσε να είμαι είτε εγώ είτε ο αδελφός μου. Επομένως, το γεγονός αυτό με στεναχωρεί πάρα πολύ. Παρ' όλα αυτά, θεωρώ πως αυτή η στεναχώρια που μου προκαλείται είναι στην πραγματικότητα ένα κίνητρο προκειμένου να προσπαθήσω κι εγώ όσο μπορώ να βελτιώσω αυτή την κατάσταση και να συμβάλλω στη δημιουργία ενός καλύτερου κόσμου για αυτά τα παιδιά.
Те нямат нищо и аз имам много. И те всеки ден трябва да си лягат гладни, пък аз имам достатъчно храна, достатъчно неща и се чувствам зле, като сега такива деца.
Мисля, че главни проблем от дискриминация манят воля людима да се прилагат на некога или нещо, що е другачие.